Episode 381. Why her? Evelyn realized that Monica knew the truth. It was useless for her to deny it, so she decided to confess. Her eyes were filled with sadness as she swallowed and said, "You're right. It was all my doing, but it doesn't matter. It's useless. No matter what I do, it won't make a difference. You can't help me, Monica. They've already decided that she is the daughter-in-law they want." "What do you mean?" Monica frowned and asked in confusion. "What do you mean by she is the daughter-in-law they want?" Evelyn burst into tears. The bracelet Jade is wearing is passed down through the family to the next new wife. Sharon gave it to Jade. They've already accepted her into their family. I don't stand a chance anymore. Monica hadn't known about the bracelet, so when she heard this, she stared at Evelyn in shock. She took a few steps back and fell weakly onto the sofa. Her eyes were full of disbelief. No wonder they had all helped Jade. They had already become so close to her. Her heart ached for Evelyn. "Monica, do you know what?" Evelyn asked. "I asked, and she admitted that they've already had sex." Monica turned pale. "Is that so? Apparently the rumors about the cold and heartless Mr. Foster aren't completely true. I guess it was just a way for him to keep people away from him," she mused. "Why would he treat me like that? Sharon told me that she wanted me to be her daughter-in-law. How did I end up like this?" Evelyn cried. She felt that she was the only one who'd been deeply hurt and deceived. She didn't even think about Monica's situation. Monica felt that she was beginning to understand several things. No wonder a woman who had appeared on the scene 2 months ago had already earned so many starring roles. Jade was something else. Monica assumed she must have hooked up with Dario so she could get promoted. Then she must have convinced him to bribe his sister so she could become the spokesperson of her cosmetics company. Her devious methods were extraordinary. "I mean, can you believe it?" Evelyn continued bitterly. "They've only known each other for 2 months. We've known him for more than 20 years. It must have been an intense 2 months. As she thought of this, she felt incomparable pain. "I think that he's been taken in by that woman," Monica said. "Can't he see that she's only after their family's money? She got close to him because she knew he would be in charge of the family fortune one day. You know, I always thought Dario was a smart man, but it only took a moment for her to snatch him up," Monica added, as she stretched out her hand and grabbed at the air. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She had never thought that things would turn out this way. She had originally thought that even if Dario didn't choose her sister, he would at least choose a woman who was compatible with their family. She hadn't expected that he would choose a nobody from nowhere. "I don't know what he could be thinking. That woman has nothing but slightly better skin. What does Jade have that I don't?" Monica thought resentfully. Walter had been resting in his own room. Seeing that the banquet was about to start, he went downstairs again. As he was busy greeting the guests, a petite figure suddenly came up behind him and covered his eyes mischievously. The girl giggled and said in a deep voice, "Guess who?" Walter smiled as he rubbed his hands in excitement. He recognized the fragrance of her favorite candy.
"It must be my baby granddaughter. Aren't you afraid that you'll ruin your teeth eating all that candy?"
Walter said with a smile. Debbie was wearing a pink princess dress. When she heard Walter, she pouted and rushed in front of him. She stomped her foot angrily. "Oh, Grandpa, how do you know it was me? And I've grown up. You need to stop calling me a baby," she said.
"Aren't you just my baby? What are you doing out of school?"
Walter asked. He was very happy to see his favorite little granddaughter. "Well, you should know that your granddaughter is very smart. They let me out early. Besides, today is your 80th birthday. How could I not come?" she said. Then, to prove she was grown up, she politely stretched out her hand and shook his as she said formally, "I wish you good fortune and a long life. May you live 100 years and always be this handsome." All the guests gushed about his cute and lively granddaughter. The Foster family was really blessed. Each of their children had so much promise. It was obvious that when Debbie grew up, she would be such a beauty and accomplish a lot. She was already so smart and quick-witted.
"Thank you, sweetheart. Your grandpa is a very happy man today,"
Walter told her. He was delighted. He had many children and grandchildren. Now that he was about to have a granddaughter-in-law, he might even have a great-grandchild soon. How could he not be happy? After delivering her birthday greeting, Debbie examined the room with her large round eyes.
"What are you looking for?"
Walter asked. Debbie put her hands on her hips and said loudly, "I'm looking for my handsome brother, of course. Why don't I see him?" Sharon saw that the guests were all staring at Debbie and stepped forward to say, "All right, Debbie, stop messing around. Your brother is in his room." Sharon was just about to tell her not to go up and disturb him when Debbie ran upstairs like a monkey, shouting behind her, "Then I'll go say hello to him." Sharon looked after her helplessly. She had wanted to tell her that her brother was in the room with Jade, but then she looked at the time. The banquet was about to start, and it was not a bad idea to let Debbie go up and get them. Besides, it would stop them from disappearing together for too long and arousing suspicion. Episode 382. I've Got You Covered. In Dario's suite on the 6th floor, the air was filled with desire. From time to time, voices could be heard coming from within the room. "Oh, Dario, stop. I really can't take it anymore," Jade said. She bit her lower lip and tried not to cry out, but Dario's actions were too intense. She couldn't help it. As he manipulated her body, he ran his thumb across her delicate lips. He bent down and said in a low, hoarse voice, "Darling, it's okay to cry out. I like to hear it. Don't hold back." Don't touch that," Jade moaned as her body spasmed and reached an indescribable peak. Finally, she collapsed on the bed. Her entire body was covered in sweat. For a moment, she couldn't even remember where she was. "Why do I feel so damp? Did I fall in the water? Have I just taken a bath?" she wondered. Dario saw that she was lost in thought. He gently bit her earlobe. An electric feeling immediately ran through her body. "Oh, right," she remembered. As soon as she had come out of the shower, Dario had pressed her down on the bed and had begun kissing and touching her. She tried not to participate, but in the end, he carried her away with pleasure. For the past hour, their naked bodies had been entangled continuously. Everything else was forgotten, including the fact that they were in the Foster's home. As they lay next to each other, Jade's chest rising and falling rapidly, Dario couldn't resist and crawled on top of her again. After the last hour, Jade had no strength to fight him off. Her body was limp as she lay on the bed. Dario bent over her and nuzzled her neck. He said, "It's okay, your dress is gone, and we've worn the makeup off. Now there's nothing you need to worry about anymore, is there?" He grinned devilishly and ran his hand up her leg. At this point, Jade's forehead sparkled with sweat and her hair was damp, making her look even more lovely in Dario's eyes. When he thought of how she wouldn't kiss him an hour ago for fear of messing up her makeup, he smiled with amusement. Dario had begun to rub up against her body again when Jade twisted away and said helplessly, "No, Dario, I beg you. I'm exhausted. Let's continue this later tonight, please." "It's okay. We've only been here an hour. It doesn't matter if we're late to the banquet," Dario said as he stroked her body. Whenever he touched her, Jade felt an electric shock. Her whole body was trembling uncontrollably. "What? Have we been here for an hour?" she cried as she suddenly sat up. "I still have to change my clothes and put on makeup again. I can't look like a crazy woman at your grandfather's banquet." In her ecstasy, she had forgotten where she was and what day it was. It was his grandfather's 80th birthday, and now her clothes were wet and crumpled, and her makeup was ruined. How long would it take for her to dress again? It was a pity that there wasn't a makeup artist nearby. Where could she get another dress? Jade was distraught, but Dario couldn't have cared less. He only wanted to lay in the bed with her and have a good time. He had hoped for another hour of entanglement. However, seeing his wife in such a panic, he tried to reassure her, saying, "Don't worry, I've got you covered." He kissed her lips again, but realized she really couldn't take it anymore. He reluctantly got up, washed, and changed into a clean suit. Jade lay on the bed weakly and watched him. Then he went to the bathroom and returned with a basin of hot water. He gently cleaned her up and then presented her with another dress and slipped it over her head. Jade was surprised as she stood up and looked in the mirror. The dress was perfect. It was as if it had been made for her. She looked at him with surprise and said, "Dario, this dress? I had it made for you. What do you think?" "Is it beautiful?" he asked. Before she could answer, he gazed at her admiringly as the dress draped across her graceful figure. He had known that Jade would need to attend different events and banquets with him, so he had prepared many tailor-made dresses according to her measurements to allow him moments like this. This dress was more spectacular than the one she'd been wearing. It was a dreamy, light purple fishtail dress with beautiful embroidered flowers on the chest and waist. It sparkled under the light, making her feel like a princess. The hem of the dress spread out behind her, and the breeze from the window gently blew through her long hair. The outside air carried in the fragrance of roses, and the room smelled of happiness. Jade looked in the mirror with amazement. She couldn't deny Dario's excellent taste. Each dress he had made for her seemed more beautiful than the previous one. Perhaps he should have become a dress designer.
I think it suits you. You look magical,
he whispered in her ear. His breath tickled her ear, and his words warmed her heart.
But I prefer you naked. I think you're the most beautiful without clothes,
he continued in an amused tone. Jade blushed and looked at him in the mirror. She pouted. Why does he have to ruin the moment? She thought. Episode 383. Displays of Affection. It was too much. Dario stared at her cute pout and couldn't help but lower his head and kiss her delicate lips. Before Jade could scold him, he'd slipped in his nimble tongue. The two of them were kissing so passionately that they couldn't let go of each other, even when they heard a knock on the door. Dario looked like he wanted to murder whoever was knocking as he called out in a stern voice.
Who is it?
Mr. Foster, it's the makeup artist you requested? The woman outside the door answered nervously. She was surprised at his angry tone. After all, he had been the one who had arranged for her to come to the room. It took Dario a long time to reply. He hurriedly helped Jade adjust her clothes. Then he opened the door as if nothing had happened. Jade was in awe of his calm demeanor.
Come in,
he said quietly to the woman outside the door. Jade was shocked to see a world-renowned makeup artist walk in. When Dario had said that she didn't need to worry because he had everything covered, she had thought he was kidding. He hadn't only arranged a spare dress, but a spare makeup artist as well. It was a bit much. After applying new makeup, the woman left without fixing her hair. Jade thought that was odd, since the others had usually done her hair as well. As she gave the door a puzzled stare, Dario walked up to the dressing table and picked up a comb. Then he gently ran it through her hair as she watched with surprise. Her eyes widened with shock when he began to braid her hair. Where had he learned to do that? He twisted the braids into an elegant updo, then added a blue gemstone hairpin. The pin was a simple design but matched her dress perfectly. Although the hairstyle was also simple, Jade stared at the mirror in disbelief. Was there anything Dario did not know how to do? Well, everyone knew he was an expert at making money. Did they realize his brain was like an encyclopedia? He also knew about cooking, cleaning, first aid, dresses, jewelry design, and women's hairstyles. He was amazing. Dario smiled back at her in the mirror and told her, "Yes, I know a lot of things. You'll discover them all in time." Then he held up a delicate flower earring
he
had designed that too. It matched the outfit very well. If he had wanted to be a stylist, he would have been the world's best. In reality, Dario had thought that on their wedding day, he would create Jade's hairstyle himself to guarantee that she would be the most beautiful bride in the world. So he had been practicing all kinds of hairstyles for weeks. He hadn't expected that it would come in so handy. "Oh my, Dario, you're amazing. It looks beautiful," Jade said, and twisted happily in front of the mirror. The hairstyle looked even more beautiful from the back. It was unique. Compared to the way she had worn her hair earlier in the afternoon, it was more elegant and seemed to better match her temperament. "I am willing to learn anything for you. I want to make you feel like the most beautiful woman in the world," Dario said and gently tapped her nose. His eyes were full of tenderness. Jade's heart skipped a beat. She threw herself into his arms and lifted her head to kiss his lips. "Dario, thank you," she whispered. He had done so much for her. She didn't know how she could ever repay him.
"Wait, can we do this? Aren't you wearing makeup?"
Dario teased as he carefully kissed her lips. She twisted away. "Dario, stop teasing," she cried. He had smudged her lipstick, and now she would have to reapply it. But it's just lipstick, she thought. Then she said to him, "For you, it's worth it. I don't care how much lipstick you waste." Dario wrapped his arms around her slim waist and whispered in her ear again. "There are other things we could try," he said, suggestively. "Why can't you be serious?" Jade swatted at him as her blushing cheeks enhanced her makeup. "Because I love you, and I can't help it when I see you. Another woman could strip naked in front of me, and I'd have no reaction. But all you need to do is wiggle your fingers, and I can't control myself," he admitted in a serious tone. Jade thought he was being funny, but then realized he was confessing that he felt no desire when he looked at other women. She'd always thought that love meant whenever you saw that person, you were overwhelmed with desire, just like Dario acted around her. He lifted her chin and was about to kiss her when the door suddenly banged open. Seeing Jade and Dario in each other's arms, Debbie pouted and put her hand on her hips. She glared up at David and growled, "David, why did you lie to me? You told me that Dario wasn't here. I hate you." She didn't know why he had tried to stop her from coming up to see Dario. She would much rather be with Dario than David. Her big eyes moved across the room and fell on Jade. She let out a cry of surprise. "Oh, Jade, I didn't recognize you. You look so beautiful. That dress makes you look like a princess." Then, realizing that Dario had his hands on Jade's waist, she gazed at them knowingly and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt something?" Dario looked at her coolly and said, "Okay, you're sorry. Now you should leave." "Young lady, it's time to go. You saw your brother kissing Jade, so you know full well that you're disturbing them. How about you come and disturb me instead?" David suggested helpfully. "How was I supposed to know? It's your fault for not being honest with me. You just tried to trick me into thinking that Dario wasn't here. Besides, I'm family. What's wrong with watching them kiss?" "Jade, it's okay for me to see you kiss, isn't it?" Debbie asked as she tugged on Jade's hand. Jade was looking more and more uncomfortable. All right, but you can't bother them here. Come downstairs with me," David said to Debbie. "I'm telling you that your brother has no conscience. He only knows how to give public displays of affection everywhere he goes. Let's not encourage him." He looked at Dario with disdain. Dario did this all the time. It wasn't appropriate in front of his younger sister. Jade's eyes lit up as she watched Debbie. She thought she was adorable. Debbie grasped Jade's hand tightly and refused to let go. "I'm not leaving. If you want to go, go by yourself. You don't have a girlfriend, so of course this bothers you. You need to go find a girlfriend as beautiful as Jade, but it doesn't bother me, so I'm not leaving," Debbie said, and stuck out her tongue at David. She was so angry that he had to hide his smile. Debbie had obviously inherited the Foster family genes. She sounded just like her grandfather. Episode 384. Measuring Up. "But we don't want to be bothered by you. Out!" Dario commanded as he scooted his sister and David out of the room. He even locked the door behind them. Jade didn't want Debbie to get upset and tried to open the door, but Dario stopped her. She looked at him and realized it was okay. Although Debbie had been pushed out, she wouldn't get angry because she would assume that her brother was being shy. "Dario, this isn't right. She's your sister," Jade said awkwardly. Dario pushed Jade against the door. "Dario, what are you doing?" she said shyly, although she knew exactly what he was doing. "I'd like to pick up where we left off," he said as he lowered his head to kiss her. Jade pushed him away. Although her makeup had only taken 30 minutes to reapply, it was almost time for the banquet to start. They didn't have an extra 30 minutes. "No way. There's no time. It's almost 6 o'clock now. We need to head down," she told him. Then she wriggled past him and walked over to the mirror to check her appearance. To avoid suspicion, they didn't go down together. Jade went down first. She hadn't expected to bump into anyone on the way down, and certainly hadn't expected to run into Monica and Evelyn. The two women were astonished when they saw Jade in her new outfit. She was even more eye-catching than before. She would certainly be the center of attention downstairs. Evelyn had also changed her dress since her other one was soaking wet. Now she was wearing a dress she had borrowed from Diane. Their figures were a little different, so it didn't exactly fit Evelyn. Her hair and makeup were casual compared to Jade's. Evelyn wore a jealous scowl, and Monica gave Jade an irritated look. From the moment she had started in the entertainment industry, Monica had never been bothered by the elite actresses because she felt that she would reach that point sooner or later. After 5 years of hard work, she had joined their ranks and had thousands of fans. But in comparison to Jade, that all seemed insignificant. Jade had only taken 2 months to reach the level Monica had spent years working to achieve. Her social media presence easily rivaled Monica's. This was the first time Monica had been jealous of another actress. When Evelyn saw Jade, she was overcome with a sense of inferiority. Until now, Evelyn had always thought of herself as a member of the Harper family. Her status and value were definitely higher than Jade's. But now when she saw her, she felt like she was falling off the social ladder altogether. Jade looked at them with surprise. Although Evelyn had just framed her, she still managed to give them a polite smile and walk gracefully towards the banquet hall. Evelyn was stunned. She had at least expected a sneer or sharp words. Jade's generosity and calmness were far more frightening. Suddenly, Evelyn had no desire to go downstairs. She stood frozen in place. Monica pulled her arm. When Evelyn didn't move, she asked doubtfully, "Why aren't you coming?" Evelyn pulled at the ill-fitting clothes she wore. Her eyes were filled with a mix of emotions. She felt as if she'd been stabbed in the heart. "Monica, am I that horrible?" she asked her sister. I know I'm not as pretty as her, so Dario will only look at her, not me. When she thought of the tender way Dario looked at Jade and how he had never shared that look with her, she grew even more despondent. Monica looked at her and said firmly, You are Evelyn Harper of the Washington Harpers. Countless young men are anxious to pursue you. You have no need to compete with Jade Winslet. But Evelyn smiled bitterly. Even if she'd been the daughter of the richest man in the world, Dario wouldn't look at her. But I really can't ever compete with her, she sighed. She looked down at the dress that didn't fit her body and recalled her simple hairstyle and makeup. All of these were inferior to Jade's. She had lost. When she had seen the bracelet on Jade's wrist, she should have realized that she had already lost. Don't be discouraged. You're Harper. It's time to lift your head and go downstairs proudly, Monica urged. Come down with me. Put on a cheerful face for them to see. You need to live your own life and forget Dario Foster. Do you understand? Come on, look up. Here we go, Monica commanded. Then she pulled Evelyn in the direction of the banquet hall. Of course, the moment Jade stepped into the hall, people began to chatter. After her fall in the water, she looked like a drowned rat. No one had expected her to return looking even more beautiful than before. She attracted the men's attention and the women's envy. When the reporters saw Jade coming down, they lifted their cameras and began snapping pictures of her. They all began talking at once. Isn't she the new actress who fell into the water? Wow, she recovered quickly. Oh my God, she is so lovely. No wonder they want her to endorse their line. This Winslet woman looks good no matter what she's wearing. Her figure is amazing. I heard that she's the lead in The King's Palace. That movie is full of big names. She must be an amazing actress to land a leading role. Episode 385. I just wanted to eat in peace. Jade heard admiring comments from the guests. Jade is amazing. She was so calm and collected when she fell into the water. I know, she's so humble and brave. She was getting used to hearing people praise her, so she managed to remain composed. She walked through the crowd toward the grand dining table, which had a range of delicious-looking finger food and a selection of expensive wines. She felt ravenous after the exertion in the water, and it was almost 6 o'clock. She selected a morsel and began eating, her hunger making her forget about her usual self-consciousness. She didn't notice the numerous men who watched her with a different kind of hunger. She licked her fingers appreciatively as she enjoyed the food, and she was unaware of the effect she was having on them, and that they were eyeing her with obvious interest. The sight of her tongue licking her fingers was too much for the men, and several of them inched closer, desperate to get a chance to converse with her, or just happy to be near such a charming woman. As she finished her tiny meat pie and picked up another, she became aware of the men around her. She looked up and noticed their heated gazes. They must think that I'm acting like a glutton, she thought, embarrassed to be the focus of their collective attention. She smiled at them shyly and, unsure of what to say, asked, Would you like some of these pies? They're delicious. Her demeanor was that of an innocent child and further endeared her to them. Most of the men were either paparazzi or wealthy older men who'd been successful in business or had come from rich families, and several of them tried to ingratiate themselves with her. Miss Winslet, can I ask you to dance later? Miss Winslet, dance with me. No, Miss Winslet, dance with me. Miss Winslet, I'm the boss of Johnson's Corporation. Would you dance with me later? Many of the men were showing off their credentials and desperately trying to attract Jade's attention. She didn't know any of them or the businesses that they were talking about, and she had no idea how wealthy and influential most of them were. She was stunned by the numerous dance invitations. What's going on? Why are they all asking me to dance? She wondered. She waved her head and shook her head shyly. I'm sorry, but I don't know how to dance. She walked away to distance herself from their attention, but looked back toward the table with hungry eyes. I just wanted to eat in peace, she thought regretfully. The lighting suddenly dimmed, and bright lights shone on the T-shaped stage at one end of the grand hall. Silence descended as Sharon and Donald walked slowly up to the stage. The banquet was about to officially begin, and Jade heaved a sigh of relief. Hopefully, those men will leave me alone now, she thought. She didn't notice the pair of eyes watching her closely from the darkness. Bruce observed her every move intently. She's changed into a new dress, he thought. She looks so pure and elegant. He couldn't take his eyes off her. There was a slight smile on her beautiful face, and he bitterly regretted having let her go after 5 years together. He had watched the men circling around her. They're like vultures, he thought, as he clenched his fist tightly, wanting to rush forward and chase them away. He desperately wanted to ask her to dance with him, but he knew that he couldn't. She should still be mine, he thought. He stared longingly at Jade's flawless face and regretted choosing Ivana. Jade was only a few feet away from him, but the distance felt much more than that. Ivana watched Bruce, her eyes filled with jealousy. Then she glared at Jade, the object of her husband's desire. I wish I could push her over and make a fool out of her, she thought. What are those stupid men doing, crowding around her like that? She's just a worthless tramp. What right does she even have to be here? As a child, Ivana had been spoiled by the Winslet family. She'd been treated like a princess, while Jade had been treated like a pariah. As a result, Ivana had come to believe that she was far superior to Jade. She had seen her as an orphan, living off her parents' charity. But the tables had turned. Now, Ivana was the wife of a man who was infatuated with another woman, and her love rival was the woman that she used to look down upon. And worse still, Jade was a renowned actress who was flaunting her newfound popularity in front of her. Jade was unaware of the attention from both Bruce and Ivana. She walked quietly back to the table where the food was, happy that the attention of the men had been drawn toward the stage. Bruce watched her fondly as she took food like a thief in the dark. She looked like a rabbit trying to avoid the predatory foxes while she ate, and he felt an almost overwhelming desire to hug her. Walter walked onto the stage and said a few words to thank people for coming. He then handed the microphone over to the host, who said a few more words before declaring that the banquet had officially begun. The atmosphere in the hall became much livelier, but just as the host was mid-sentence, a female guest screamed. Episode 386, An Unexpected Arrival. Jade, who was still busily eating, was stunned for a moment. At first, she thought that something terrible had happened. Then she followed the gazes of the guests and looked at the staircase. She saw a dashingly handsome man walking slowly down the stairs, his posture elegant and powerful. His appearance caused a commotion among the guests. Many of the women reacted with cries of appreciation. His skin was fair, and his features were chiseled. He looked like a Greek god who was descending to earth to visit the mortal realm. His usual cold and aloof demeanor were replaced by a gentle and kind expression. He was tall and well-muscled in an athletic way that was accentuated by his perfectly fitting suit. His black, glossy hair, straight nose, and sensual yet thin lips all added to his appeal, making many of the women stand speechless while others commented on his various attributes. The young Mr. Foster is just too handsome. He looks like Prince Charming from a fairy tale. He really should be a supermodel. I'd love to be in his arms. He looks so strong. While the women in the hall were preoccupied with their desire to be with him, the men harbored wishes to be like him. Everyone fell into a state of infatuation as they watched him descend toward them. Despite his gentle expression, there was still a hint of his usual indifference, as if the crowd below wasn't there at all. His apparent lack of awareness of the many people enthralled by his entrance only added to his attractiveness, and the female guests remained captivated by him, even though they didn't expect him to even acknowledge their existence. Jade put down the plate of hors d'oeuvres in her hand and watched her husband. She smiled and marveled at the effect he had on the crowd. She knew that she was different from all the other women because she had his heart and could command his undivided loyalty. Dario scanned the crowd for his wife and found her. Their eyes met for a moment, though no one seemed to notice. He smiled at her knowingly, and although the other guests didn't know whom he was smiling at, they looked on admiringly, and many imagined how it would feel to be the recipient of such a smile. Dario had a reputation for being cold and aloof, and for showing no interest in women. It was rare to see him smile, even for those who knew him best. The atmosphere in the room changed as if it was electrically charged by his arrival, and there were more comments from within the crowd. Oh my God, did you see Mr. Foster's smile?
He looks even more handsome when he smiles.
He looks more like a god than a human. I feel like I could die from desire. I don't believe I've ever seen a more perfect man. None of the women knew that Dario's heart belonged to Jade. Dario's smile faded as his gaze swept coldly over the crowd. He again looked like the powerful CEO, who was distant and unattainable. Bruce looked on with increasing jealousy.
He's taken everything from me,
he thought bitterly.
Jade is mine by right, and he's stolen her from me.
He clenched his teeth tightly together and glared coldly at his nemesis. Then he returned his gaze to Jade and saw her smiling.
Just you carry on smiling while you can, Jade. You won't be smiling for much longer, he thought.
Dario continued ignoring the large crowd, walked directly onto the stage and took the microphone from the host. The guests looked on in anticipation. Sharon was confused. We hadn't arranged for Dario to go on stage to say anything, she thought. She frowned and whispered anxiously to her husband. What do you think he's going to say? You don't think he's going to announce his relationship with Jade here in front of everyone, do you? Donald looked at her calmly and said, Don't worry, you have to trust him. He knows what he's doing. He wouldn't do anything stupid. I doubt that he'd reveal their relationship now. He knows it would damage her career, and he loves her more than anything. He looked at his son with respect. He's just like I was when I was that age, arrogant and overbearing. But that's how I managed to get Sharon, he thought. Then what's he doing up there? What's he going to say? Sharon said, still nervous at her son's unplanned presence. Don't worry, honey. Let's just sit and watch and we'll find out. Donald replied in a loving voice, and he wrapped his arm around her waist. He loved her dearly and wasn't afraid to show it. Monica and Evelyn also looked on and wondered what Dario was going to say. It was common knowledge that Dario kept a very low profile, and he rarely made any form of announcement. It would be out of character for him to go on stage to wish his grandfather a happy birthday, so their intuition told him that his presence heralded something more monumentous. Evelyn looked on sadly, aware that whatever he said wasn't going to change the way he had rejected her. As she looked at him, she saw the man who had caused her pain, but her infatuation with him prevented her from looking away. Her heartbeat increased as she thought back to seeing Dario and Jade exchanging loving gazes, and she felt anger rising inside her. Episode 387. He Takes to the Stage. Jade watched with increasing nervousness as she saw Dario step onto the stage and take the microphone. Dario always avoids being on stage when he can, so what is he doing? Surely he's not going to announce that we're married, she thought. Jade wasn't concerned about the negative effect that it would have on her career if he revealed their relationship. She was worried that it would be detrimental to his reputation. I still don't feel like I'm good enough for him, she thought. If the media knew that he had married someone of low status like me, people would think less of him. One day, when I've achieved what I want in my career, I might have the confidence to stand next to him. But I'm not ready yet. Bruce stared at Dario with his eyes full of anger. What's he doing on stage? He thought. Ivana had watched Dario descend the stairs, and she had thought at first that he was just a very handsome man. It was only when some of the other guests had called him young Mr. Foster that she realized he was the legendary Dario Foster, who was reputed to avoid publicity whenever possible. The realization that he was Jade's husband only increased her resentfulness. How could Jade end up with a man like that? She thought bitterly. This just keeps getting worse and worse. The crowd speculated about what he was going to say, but Dario's face remained impassive and calm. He held the microphone with complete confidence, and as he spoke, his voice sounded deep and bewitching. First of all, thank you all for coming to celebrate my grandfather's birthday. Secondly, I'd like to take this opportunity to bask in my grandfather's glory and announce something important to everyone. The silence dissipated as the crowd was in an uproar again, speculating about what Dario's announcement was going to be. Evelyn felt a deep sadness in her heart, as she suspected that whatever he said wasn't going to be good news for her. She took a step backward as if distancing herself from what was about to happen on stage. I hope he's not announcing his relationship with that woman, she thought. He may as well announce it in front of the whole world. How could he do that in front of me? Jade listened intently to see what he was going to say. I've got a bad feeling about this, she thought nervously. Surely he's not going to tell everyone about us. I'm not ready for that. There's still too big a gap between us, and all this time that we've hidden our relationship would be for nothing. Everyone would think that the only reason I'm famous is because of his influence. It would make my rise to fame quicker, but I don't want to be famous just because I'm married to Dario. I want to succeed off my own back. She shook her head desperately under the stage and tried to catch Dario's eye to somehow signal to him not to reveal their relationship. But Dario deliberately ignored her, so he didn't see how frantically worried she was. The reporters were busily taking photos of the handsome businessman on stage and bombarding him with questions. Mr. Foster, what is it you'd like to tell us? Mr. Foster, are you thinking of getting married? At the age of 30, have you finally found a girlfriend, Mr. Foster? The final question was delivered jokingly, and the atmosphere suddenly became livelier. Many of the guests gasped at the impudence of the question, and some wondered if the reporter would be removed from the venue. In the past, when brazen reporters had gone to the Milliken agency to dig up dirt on Mr. Foster, they had quickly found themselves out of a job and without any prospects of future employment. As a result, journalists had learned to retain a very respectful tone when dealing with Milliken's CEO. Everyone looked at Dario to see how he would respond, and there were several audible sighs of relief when he smiled and said calmly,
"You're right. My announcement is indeed in relation to my romantic life."
His voice was deep and charming, and it had an intoxicating effect on the crowd, especially the women. Several more comments were made.
"What? Mr. Foster wants to talk about a woman? My God, does he have a girlfriend? No way,
I've never seen him with a woman. This is just too much. I've heard that he's never had a girlfriend. Everyone says he's just not interested in women." The gossiping women were talking in hushed tones, desperate to hear what Dario was going to say next. He didn't keep them waiting for too long. He spoke in a low voice, but it still carried well throughout the hall with the help of the microphone.
"I want everyone here to bear witness to what I'm going to announce. From this day on, I'm going to pursue the woman who makes my heart beat faster than it ever has in the past. From the moment I saw her, I knew that she was the woman for me, the person I've been searching for the last 30 years.
There were more comments from the crowd below. What? Who is he going to pursue? Why would he need to pursue anyone? Whoever she is, she's never going to turn him down. There was a fresh burst of flashes from cameras as reporters sensed the importance of the moment and desperately wanted to get the perfect picture to accompany the article that they intended to write. Mr. Foster, the dashingly handsome billionaire businessman, had announced that he was going to woo a woman. This was explosive news, and the Great Hall was filled with excitement. Episode 388. A Big Announcement. The story of how Dario had succeeded in the business world had become something of a legend. He had started his own company at the age of 16 and had achieved extraordinary things. But the story of his romantic life couldn't have been more different. He was reputed to have never had a girlfriend, and it was believed that no woman had ever gotten close to being romantically involved with him. Now that he had openly revealed his intention to pursue a woman, the crowd was both shocked and excited.
Who could she be? She must be someone very special to make someone like Mr. Foster fall for her. My God, whoever she is, I bet she's beautiful.
Oi, do you think he might have taken a fancy to me? It could be me. I think I saw him look in my direction when he walked to the stage. Many of the women had a glimmer of hope that they could be the one that he had fallen for. They looked at his alluring lips, waiting for him to reveal the name of the woman in his heart. Evelyn's face turned pale when she heard him, and she stepped back, once again stepping on her long skirt and nearly falling over. Monica put out her hand and steadied her before she fell, thus saving her from further humiliation. "What's wrong?" Monica asked. Evelyn held back her tears, although her eyes were full of despair. She knew whom Dario wanted to talk about. Other than Jade, there was no one else. Why does he want to announce it in front of all these reporters? Does he not care about how much this will hurt me? Do I really mean that little to him? She wondered. She felt a desperate compulsion to rush forward and demand that Dario come down and explain himself to her, but she knew that she couldn't embarrass the Fosters or her own family any more. Sharon looked at her son and guessed what he was going to do. He's so like his father, she thought. She thought back to how Donald had made it look like he had started chasing after her, even though they were already in a relationship. He had feared that his parents would disapprove because the gap between them in social status and wealth was so great. When she had gotten pregnant, he had told the Foster family that they were going to get married regardless of what people thought. Donald had planned it all meticulously, and he had executed his plan to perfection. Sharon had a blissful look on her face as she remembered back to their youth. Well, I suppose Dario deserves to have a love story too. He doesn't want to announce their relationship. He wants to pursue Jade in front of all the media so that he can protect her, she thought, proud of her son's ability to manipulate the media to serve his own ends. Dario's plan also served another purpose. It would raise Jade's value as a celebrity. She was going to be the famous actress who was chased by the billionaire businessman rather than the actress who became famous because of the support of her rich husband. His plan prevented anyone from accusing Jade of deliberately pursuing a rich and influential man for her own advancement. By taking the initiative, Dario would be protecting her from all sorts of future insults and speculation. Looking at the situation as a whole, he's made a very clever move, Sharon thought. I really should trust my son's judgment. Isabel's interpretation wasn't quite so favourable.
What is this that Dario is trying to do? Could it be that he wants to pursue that woman openly? Pursue an actress? It's too embarrassing for the Foster family, she muttered grouchily. Walter, who was standing next to her, smiled as he watched his grandson. That kid is just like I used to be, he said fondly. Walter liked Jade, and he had no intention of interfering with Dario's love life. Isabel was surprised to see Walter's calm reaction. Doesn't he have any thoughts of opposing Dario's choice? If anything, he seems happy about it, she thought disgruntledly. She then looked in turn at Sharon, Donald, and Diane. Each of them seemed to be calmly accepting the situation, and she felt very alone. What? Are you all just going to let this happen? Can't you see that he's making a big mistake? She asked incredulously. He may as well announce it to the whole world. Diane smiled and walked to her side. Grandma, I think Jade is quite nice. She came to my company to shoot a commercial, and she was very humble and hardworking. There are very few actors like her. Besides, regardless of whether we agree or not, it's Dario's choice, and we should support him. Isabel sighed helplessly. What do you know? Her background is too lowly for him. And do you really think that woman likes Dario? She then sat quietly and adopted a worried expression. Diane wasn't concerned about Jade's feelings for Dario because Dario had told her that when he and Jade had first met, she hadn't known his true identity, and she was still unaware of his position as CEO of his company. Jade looked shyly at Dario, embarrassed at the thought of what he might say. She could feel her heart beating rapidly in her chest as she watched her husband expectantly. She was afraid but also excited. The reporters below the stage competed to ask questions, several of them holding out microphones to catch every word he said. Mr. Foster, who is this mystery woman? Mr. Foster, is this woman you're going to pursue here tonight? The reporters were relentless, but Dario didn't answer any of their questions. Instead, he gazed at Jade with deep affection. It quickly became apparent that Dario was transfixed on someone in the crowd, and people in the crowd began turning to find the person who had attracted his attention. There was another burst of comments from the crowd. Heavens, I think Mr. Foster likes Miss Winslet. Oh my God, I'm so jealous. They would make a good couple. He's so handsome and she's so beautiful. I can imagine them being together. Jade tightly squeezed her hands in an attempt to calm down, but she could feel her heart beating even quicker than before. She brought her hands to her cheeks and realized that her face was hot to the touch. I don't know why Dario was doing this, but I need to stay calm and think before I react, she thought, afraid of ruining whatever her husband's plans were. Mr. Foster, the woman you want to pursue, is she the famous actress, Jade Winslet? Shouted one of the female guests, her eyes filled with jealousy. That's right, he replied in his low voice. The woman I like is Miss Winslet. Dario continued looking at Jade as he spoke. There was a collective gasp of surprise as the people in the crowd absorbed the revelation. Dario spoke into the microphone with obvious sincerity, and his bewitching voice seemed to hypnotize the crowd. From the moment I first saw her, I've been thinking about her day and night. I've been waiting for the right woman for 30 years, and now that I've found her, I want to do everything I can to make her smile. And I intend to marry her. Episode 389. How could he do this? Dario had spoken very seriously, with sincerity, and his handsome features looked calm as he remained standing on the stage. The female guests chatted excitedly. They hadn't expected that the outwardly cold and aloof CEO would ever reveal his feelings so openly and in such a public way. Many people looked at Jade to gauge her reaction, with many women desperately wishing that they could become Jade and have Dario confess his love to them instead. Jade held back the tears in her eyes and forced herself to remain composed. I can't believe he just did that, she thought. He must love me very much to make such a public display in front of all these people. He wants them to think that he's the one initiating the relationship. He's lowering his own status and confessing his love for me so that no one can say that I pursued him for his money and his influence. I don't know how I can ever repay him for this. Jade realized that thanks to his strategy, one day they would announce their wedding plans. Everyone would simply think that Dario had successfully conquered her heart, and they would just wish them well. No one will be able to accuse me of trying to seduce him so that I can take advantage of his money and power to further my career, she thought lovingly. He's protecting me from future insults and accusations. He's always thinking of me, and he plans things out so meticulously. The consensus among the crowd was that it would be a good match.
Although there was some envy from women who wished that Dario had expressed their love for them, most of the guests had been touched by Dario's heartfelt revelation. Evelyn, however, looked on with an expression of pure hatred. Dario's announcement had only increased her resentment, and she was furious beyond words. She'd always told herself that Dario was cold and indifferent. That, at least, had helped her to make peace with his lack of interest in her, because he treated all women with a similar level of disinterest. But now that she had seen a tender side of him, devoted entirely to another woman, she felt deeply hurt. Tears began to flow freely down her face as any last hope of one day marrying Dario drifted away. I've chased him for over 20 years and never so much as had a glimmer of hope, and now he announces his undying love for another woman in front of all these people. It's just too much to bear, she thought. I don't understand. How am I inferior to Jade? Why did he treat me this way? Why did he hurt me like this? She wondered hopelessly. Hilda noticed Evelyn crying and went to her side to comfort her.
Evelyn, what's wrong, dear? Don't cry,
she said, her old face full of concern for her granddaughter.
What's wrong with Dario? You've always had a good relationship with his parents. Didn't the Fosters say they wanted Dario to have a good wife? You've been friends since you were children. Can't they see that you'd make a much better wife for him?
Grandma, Dario doesn't want me. His mother doesn't want me either. They like Jade and only her. I'm nothing to them, Evelyn said between sobs. She threw herself into her grandmother's arms and cried uncontrollably. There was anger in Hilda's stern eyes.
What the hell is going on? How dare he treat Evelyn like this? It's too much,
she muttered to herself. Turning to her granddaughter, she said,
Evelyn, don't cry. When the banquet is finished, I'll go and speak to them and get justice for you.
Several of Evelyn's relatives saw her crying and gathered around to support her. It's all right, Evelyn, don't cry, Monica said, trying to comfort her sister. It's breaking Mum and Dad's hearts to see you so sad. Despite Monica's strong demeanour, Dario's words had cut her just as deeply as they had Evelyn. Monica and Evelyn shared the same desire, to be loved by Dario. But there was a fundamental difference in the approach of the two sisters. While Evelyn had been open about her love for her cousin, Monica had kept her feelings a secret. All right, Evelyn, don't cry anymore. It pains Dad so much to see you like this, Monica said.
That damn Dario. How dare he make you sad like this,
said Rex, his face full of anger.
I need to find Donald to discuss the matter. Dario can't be allowed to get away with this.
Dad, what does this have to do with Uncle Foster? Evelyn asked as she wiped away her tears. She was afraid that invoking Dario's father might make things worse. Rex snorted disdainfully.
He's responsible for the way he brought his son up. Besides, look at Donald and Sharon sitting there so calmly. They weren't even surprised by what Dario said. It was obvious that they already knew about that woman. Why are we hearing about this now in front of all these people? If we had known earlier, we could have saved you a lot of pain and heartache.
Evelyn began to feel even more upset. That's right, she thought. His parents must have known about this beforehand. Sharon had even given Jade the dragon bracelet, so it's impossible to believe they didn't already know. Only 2 months ago, Sharon told me that she would be happy if I was her daughter-in-law. But now I've been replaced by another woman. If only they had told me earlier, it wouldn't have hurt so much, Evelyn thought. The Harper family weren't the only ones who were angry about Dario's announcement. Bruce had listened to what his love rival had said with surprise and increasing fury.
I would never have imagined that the legendary billionaire businessman would have announced his love for Jade in front of all these people, he thought. He's reputed to be so secretive, it just doesn't make sense. I think this was all arranged in advance.
He felt he knew the reason behind the announcement.
If the media report that Dario is pursuing Jade, then other men will be put off because they'll know that they can't compete with a rich and powerful man like him, he concluded. Dario has rid himself of almost all competitors for Jade's heart.
He looked around and saw that most of the other male guests were looking disappointed. Any thoughts or dreams that they could one day become romantically involved with Jade had been shattered.
I've never actually seen Dario and Jade together in public, Bruce thought suspiciously. They've been deliberately concealing their relationship. Maybe the reason he made his announcement today was so that they could start seeing each other openly.
His mind was on a roll considering how this would affect him.
It would be even worse to see them in public together. I don't want them rubbing it in my nose all the time. I'd never be able to escape it. They'd even be on TV together. I can just imagine it now. The whole world watching them and wishing them well. It would be awful.
Ivana, who was standing beside Bruce, had been amazed to find out Dario's true identity and even more so to hear his declaration of love for Jade. Her eyes were wide with surprise as she began to understand the situation. Dario, who is pretty much the perfect man, is a big businessman in the famous Foster family, she thought bitterly. He usually keeps his personal life a secret, but since he's announced his love for Jade, that means that she's now going to be even more famous. What does he see in her? She wondered. At most, she's just an actress. He could choose any woman he likes, so why would he choose her? Her mind was filled with jealousy and resentment. We both have the same family name. Why has she ended up with everything? Episode 390. A previous meeting. Ivana had tried everything she could to steal Bruce from Jade because she knew that the Stevens family was very rich. She had thought that she could live a life of leisure, pleased that she had successfully stolen her cousin's man. But now that she had found out that Jade was with Dario, her smug satisfaction had turned to envy. Dario was far wealthier and more powerful than Bruce. I stole Jade's rich boyfriend, but my brat of a cousin just went and found an even richer man, she thought bitterly. To make things even worse for Evelyn, she didn't feel that Bruce had ever really taken her seriously. She had pretended to be pregnant so that he would marry her. Her rouge had worked, and she had become Mrs. Stevens, but Bruce wasn't a kind husband, and he didn't treat her well. She looked enviously at the way Dario treated Jade. I wish I could be pursued like that, instead of taken for granted, she thought miserably. It had been Ivana who had chased Bruce, trying to lure him away from Jade, and the thrill of success had long since waned for her. She was tired of being used by him, and worse still, Bruce was now thinking about Jade again. She had hired people to follow her husband and discovered that he had followed Jade to Los Angeles. I have nothing more than an empty shell of a man, she thought resentfully. I don't even have his heart. He's obsessed with Jade. There was another person at the party who had misgivings about Jade. Dario's grandmother, Isabel, was shocked by Dario's announcement, but she knew that she could no longer openly oppose their relationship. If I force him to marry another woman, the media would make him look like a playboy who flits from woman to woman, she thought. I can't do anything that would bring him or the Foster family into disrepute. I'll just have to let him make his own mistakes, she realized. Whenever I think of Jade, I can't do anything that would damage Dario's reputation. He's stopped me from trying to separate them. Diane and Donald were both very happy to see Dario finding his own happiness, although Dario's mother still had her reservations. Sharon looked at Evelyn, who was hiding in a corner and crying, and she felt sad for her. In the past, Sharon had shown Evelyn kindness and support, and she was sorry for the pain that she was going through now that Dario had rejected her for another woman. She felt somewhat responsible. After the immediate uproar following Dario's announcement, there was a steady stream of photographs being taken of the handsome man on stage. Some of the braver reporters ventured to ask Dario more questions. Mr. Foster, did you fall in love with Miss Winslet the first time that you saw her? This is very romantic. It's like the plot of a novel. Dario smiled and looked at Jade with tender eyes. His deep and magnetic voice sounded again. How can a novel be as exciting as real life? From the moment I saw her, I knew she was the woman I'd been looking for. Jade, you are a thief who stole my heart, he said in a serious voice. Several women from the crowd gasped and commented on the romantic moment. Oh my God, Mr. Foster is so handsome. He's so considerate and affectionate. I wish he loved me. He's the perfect man. But he and Miss Winslet are a good match. Yes, you can't deny that they go well together. The women looked at Jade enviously. Another reporter asked tentatively, Mr. Foster, may I ask if today is the first time you've met Miss Winslet? If so, isn't it a bit sudden to publicly confess your love for her? The reporter had perceptively voiced a thought shared by many others in the crowd. Jade looked at Dario nervously when she heard the question. Does the reporter know about our relationship? She wondered. Dario replied authoritatively, No, today isn't the first time I've met Miss Winslet. There were gasps from many of the people present, and then a hushed silence as they waited with bated breath for more information. The reporter continued, What? Then may I ask when you've seen Miss Winslet before? 5 years ago, Dario replied simply. Jade looked on, beginning to feel confused. Did I meet him 5 years ago? She wondered. I remembered Dario mentioning something about seeing me 5 years ago, but I don't remember seeing him. 5 years ago, I came to her aid. 5 years later, we met again. I believe it was fate that brought us together. Unfortunately,
She's forgotten our original meeting, but it doesn't matter. I'm determined to get to know each other properly now,"
Dario said resolutely. The people in the hall listened intently to his every word. The story captured the imagination of many. Even Dario's family was intrigued, as he hadn't mentioned their previous meeting to any of them. Only David and Lucas were not surprised by the latest revelation. Episode 391. Accept him. Jade searched her mind for a memory of Dario from 5 years before. "I can't remember seeing him at all 5 years ago, and I certainly can't remember him saving me," she thought. "Maybe he's made that up to make our love story more interesting. No, I'm sure he wouldn't do that. There must be some memory of him in my mind. I just don't understand why I can't remember him." Then something came to her. "How could I forget something so important?" she thought. 5 years ago, someone did save me. But I thought it was Bruce who had saved me. At least, that's what Bruce let me believe. I wonder if Dario was the one who actually saved me. Jade's eyes widened in disbelief. She didn't have the time to react to the sudden realization. Dario returned the microphone to the host and elegantly stepped off the stage. The crowd watched him in admiration as he walked toward Jade. The people between them made way for him, forming a path for him to walk through. He stopped when he was standing right in front of her, and he looked into her eyes affectionately. "Miss Winslet, from this moment on, I will pursue you until you agree to be my wife. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." There were gasps from the women close enough to hear what he had said. He had declared not only his love for Jade, but also that he wanted a lifetime commitment. The romance of his words captured their imaginations, while the realization that he was committing himself for life to one woman dashed any hope that he would one day become available again. Jade was stunned and didn't know how to respond. She stared back at the handsome man in front of her, her heart beating rapidly. "Mr. Foster, are you really the person who saved me 5 years ago?" She remembered that the man who had saved her was tall and athletic, but he had been wearing a mask that had covered half his face. Although the mask hadn't covered his noble temperament, it had prevented her from recognizing him. "I should have guessed it when he walked out at the Adele Q signing ceremony. He had a mask on then, and I should have realized it was him," she thought. No wonder that when I first saw Dario, I felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. That must be why I felt like I already knew him. Jade had always felt that fate had treated her very unfairly. Her childhood had been difficult, and she had experienced many hardships. Her parents had both died when she was very young, and her aunt and uncle had treated her terribly. Her cousin Ivana had bullied her relentlessly and had even stolen her boyfriend. But Jade felt that her fortune had now turned. "I have Dario, and he loves me and cares for me as well as anyone could hope for," she thought. "I feel like I'm the luckiest woman alive. It really must be fate that we've ended up together." Bruce looked on with deep resentment, mortified that Dario had revealed that he had been the one who had saved Jade 5 years ago. "I never thought that the man who really saved her would actually turn up one day," he thought. "And I never knew that it was actually Dario. How unlucky could I possibly be?" When Jade and Bruce had been together, she had always stayed loyal to Bruce because she had thought that he had saved her life. But Bruce knew that if the truth ever came out, it would not only increase her disdain for him, but also her love for Dario. His heart ached when he thought of how Jade was no longer his to hold and love. "If only I'd kept silent about what happened 5 years ago, I'd have a chance to win her back now. I'm such a fool," he thought. Bruce knew Jade well enough to understand that she would feel indebted to the man who had saved her. She would want to repay the kindness that was shown to her. "She'll always be loyal to him now," Bruce thought miserably. "Everything I said 5 years ago has worked against me. It's my own fault that Jade and Dario are together now. What was I thinking? If I'd known that things would turn out like this, I would have done things very differently." Dario gazed lovingly at Jade and said, "Haven't you recognized me yet, my little princess? But I don't want you to remember me as the man who saved you. I want to be the man who stands next to you for the rest of our lives." When the women nearby heard the words, "little princess," they gasped and wished that they could trade places with Jade. They all wanted to be the princess who stood next to Dario. Tears began to flow uncontrollably down Jade's cheeks. "He really is the person who saved me," she thought. Dario reached out his hand and wiped away her tears. It was an intimate gesture done so tenderly that the people watching were deeply moved. It was so out of character for the cold CEO that he was reputed to be. The reporters happily took pictures of Jade and Dario together. It was a story that would attract a great deal of attention in both New York and Washington. The guests were also deeply affected by Dario's announcement and his story of having saved Jade 5 years ago. No one doubted the truth of what he had said. It made sense that he had jumped into the river without hesitation to save her. He had been searching for Jade for 5 years, and now that he had found her, he was willing to take any risk necessary to be with her. 5 years was long enough to make a person's youth ebb away. To wait for 5 years showed amazing sacrifice and persistence, and the story moved some guests to tears. Suddenly, someone from the crowd shouted, "Accept him!" After that, many others joined in and also called out words of support. "He loves you! Accept him! Yes, accept him! Accept him! Miss Winslet, accept him!" Episode 392. A lot of trouble for a dance. Dario was pleased with how things were working out. It was all going according to plan, but only Jade could see the satisfaction on his face. Jade looked around at the other people who were in the dark about the full truth of their story. She felt both amused and also annoyed. Dario is too clever for his own good, she thought. He seems to be able to control any situation with his brilliant mind. But he's doing this for both of us. He's doing all this so that we can be together. Bruce looked on with increasing anger as he saw the crowd supporting Dario's appeal to Jade's heart. Ivana watched with increasing confusion. What's going on? She wondered. Why does Jade have to keep showing off in front of me? Why is he chasing her when we already know that she loves him? I thought that perhaps they were already married. I just don't understand why they're putting on this show. Then a thought entered her devious mind. If I told the media that they're already married, it would humiliate Mr. Foster and Jade, she thought excitedly. I have to do it. It's the only way to have my revenge. Evelyn's face was full of despair as she watched the scene unfold. They knew each other from before, she thought. Why did Jade lie to me? Why did she tell me that they'd only known each other for 2 months if they had met 5 years ago? Dario is loyal to her from when they first met, she thought sadly, and then she sobbed. Monica looked at her sister irritably and tried to calm her down. All right, Evelyn, you should be ashamed of yourself for blubbering like that. People are watching you. Bruce and Ivana being present for Dario's announcement had all been part of Dario's plan. He had taken measures to prevent them from causing any trouble. There were hired men in the crowd who would ensure that anyone who tried to cause problems would be removed from the venue and dealt with. Meanwhile, there was still supportive chants from people within the crowd. Accept him! Accept him! Dario again wiped tears from Jade's face, and then he spoke loudly and clearly enough to be heard. Miss Winslet, look, everyone wants you to accept me, but you should spend some time with me first to make sure that I'm the right person for you. If you're not satisfied with me, then you can return me like an unwanted gift, but I don't think that will be necessary. I believe that once you get to know me, you'll give me a 5-star review. Dario's joke made Jade laugh out loud. It was completely out of character with the public persona that she was used to seeing from Dario. Today has been quite a day for surprises, she thought. He's done all this for me. He wants to protect me, and he wants to make sure that people don't misunderstand my intentions. She took a deep breath and replied with a smile. Mr. Foster, if I promised myself to you now, it would be too soon. You just said that you would give me time to think about it. Dario smiled back and nodded his assent. Miss Winslet, may I ask you to dance? But I don't know how to dance, she replied truthfully. Why is everyone asking me to dance today? She wondered. That's all right, I can teach you, he said. Dario was not adopting his usual cold and aloof demeanor. It was as if he had changed into a different person altogether. His expression exuded tenderness and warmth, and Jade felt intoxicated by him. Before she could form an answer, David emerged from the crowd and approached them. Mr. Foster, Miss Winslet is very popular. You can't just ask her to dance like that. She's a famous actress, and there are plenty of other men who would love to dance with her. Dario looked at his friend coldly and wanted to say, You're only interested in Monica. But he raised his eyebrows and asked, Then what do you suggest? Jade was surprised by David's sudden intervention, and she wondered what he was going to say next. David is a bit of a loose cannon, but I doubt that he would undermine Dario in front of all these people, she thought. Maybe this is something that they arranged together beforehand. I wonder what they're up to. David continued. Of course, we can't make it too easy for you to earn a dance with Miss Winslet. You have to understand that she's now one of the most popular actresses in the country. Countless men would love to dance with her. Many of the guests knew that David had a mischievous nature and that he and Dario had been close friends since childhood, so they weren't surprised to see David getting involved and taking the lead. His comments also encouraged people from the crowd to support David's position. That's right, Miss Winslet is a star. Even if you are Mr. Foster, you can't just take her to the dance floor as easily as that. You need to do something to win a dance with her. Several of the men had already been turned down by Jade for a dance, and the idea that Dario would have to earn a dance appealed to them. Walter observed the proceedings with a smile.
My birthday banquet is turning out to be rather interesting, he thought. It's been a long time since we've had this kind of liveliness at the Foster Villa. I don't remember a better party than this one. Most importantly, Dario seems to have found happiness.
David continued.
If you want to pursue her, you have to prove how sincere you are. I'm going to ask you both 3 questions, and you will write down your answers separately. As long as your 3 answers match, Miss Winslet will dance with you. Mr. Foster, you say that you've liked Miss Winslet for 5 years. In that case, you should know her very well indeed,
David said with a crafty expression. Jade frowned. What's David trying to do? She wondered. Is he making trouble to show Dario that he can be strong too?
Room after the morning run, intending to get ready for the reception later.
Episode 393. A difficult question. Jade felt slightly excited by David's
Anything else is
proposal. I've never actually seen Dario make a fool of himself. I'm interested to see how this will work out, she thought.
So, Mr. Foster, do you accept the challenge?
David asked, looking at his friend provocatively.
Let's ask Miss Winslet to see if she's willing to participate in your little game,
Dario said in a gentlemanly manner. His considerate comment drew appreciation from the women in the crowd.
David looked at Jade confidently and said, Miss Winslet, are you willing to play this game with Mr. Foster to give him a chance to win a dance with you?
Jade frowned and looked at David thoughtfully. She was still confused about what his intentions were and whether it had been arranged beforehand. While she considered what to say, the crowd took the initiative and began shouting, Yes, yes! Jade was puzzled. This isn't a marriage proposal. Why do they have to keep shouting? It's just a game, she thought. The excitement of the crowd increased, and Jade felt compelled to agree. So she nodded her head reluctantly, and Dario followed her example and nodded also. The crowd cheered appreciatively. I never thought I would be cheered by crowds like this. Dario arranged all this for me, she thought. David seemed to have known all along that they would both agree. He handed them each 3 pieces of card and a thick black marker pen, and then led them back to the stage where the guests and reporters would be able to see them better. At David's request, Dario and Jade sat opposite each other, but far enough that they wouldn't be able to see what each other had written. David stood in between them and in full view of the crowd, holding the microphone. He looked like a host from a TV show.
Since Mr. Foster and Miss Winslet have agreed, let's start the game. I wonder what questions we should ask them,
David said, smiling broadly. Jade took a deep breath. Did they arrange this beforehand, or are these questions going to be random? She wondered. If they're random, Dario might get the answers wrong. A female guest rushed up to the stage and said, You could ask him what Miss Winslet's first acting job was.
Good question. Come and receive your reward. You win a lollipop,
David said, still smiling. As he spoke, he removed a lollipop from his pocket and handed it to the woman, who looked very pleased with herself and smiled brightly at David. It was common knowledge that although Jade had only recently become famous, she'd been a relatively unknown actress for some time. It was also well known that Jade had acted in Decadent Lady and had started filming The King's Palace, but the parts she had done prior to that had mostly been minor roles. It was a difficult question. Dario retained a calm expression as he took out a pen and wrote on his piece of card. Jade felt nervous, and she wondered whether there was any chance that Dario would know the answer. Her first acting role had been a long time ago. She'd been a freshman in college at the time, and it had been a very small role. She had only appeared for a few minutes and delivered only a couple of lines.
Okay, I'll start counting down. 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Please reveal your answers. Let's see if Mr. Foster really deserves a dance with Miss Winslet.
Jade tentatively turned her piece of card around and showed her answers. Written on her board were the 2 words, springtime. It had been an emotional drama, and it hadn't been very popular. Few people had seen it, and the guests in the crowd were at a loss.
I've never heard of it.
I never knew that Miss Winslet was in a TV series.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either. How would Mr. Foster ever know that?
Just as the expectations in the crowd were at a low point, Dario revealed his answer. On his card was written, "Springtime." The crowd was once again in uproar.
My God, this is unbelievable. He's actually gotten it right.
Yeah, he must really care about her to know something like that.
Mr. Foster, that's amazing. I hope you're not cheating,
David said, frowning at Dario. Dario met his gaze and calmly replied,
"Not only do I know her first acting job, I know everything she's acted in over the last 5 years. I've been following her career closely. She just didn't know about it."
There were more comments from the guests.
My God, this is too romantic.
Miss Winslet is so lucky. Imagine having someone love you that much. Jade's heart softened, and she was moved by Dario's devotion to her. I had no idea that he was paying that much attention to me, she thought. She raised her eyes and looked at him. I just want to go to him and thank him for everything, she thought. I should have done that 5 years ago, and I don't want to miss that chance again. Dario's plan was working out just as he had intended. He didn't want to have to keep their relationship secret anymore, and he didn't want to have to avoid the paparazzi. But he did want the Harper family to stop pressuring him to marry Evelyn, and he also wanted to stop his grandmother from making things difficult. Dario had guessed that by openly declaring his love for Jade, he could make things much easier for them both.
I can't believe you guessed it so easily, David said. It looks like we're going to need to increase the difficulty. Only then can you ask Miss Winslet to dance. Do you all agree?
David called to the crowd. Predictably, the gathered people shouted their assent. Episode 394. The second question.
Ask away,
Dario said confidently, his expression calm.
All right, then let's have a second question from the crowd, David said. But this time, let's have an even harder one. If it isn't hard enough, then we'll have to watch our favorite actress dancing with Mr. Foster here,
he added with a dramatic frown. The atmosphere in the hall was getting increasingly lively under David's influence. His experience as the owner of a club was paying off, and it was clear that he had quite a talent for entertaining a crowd. The people below discussed animatedly what would be a good question to ask. It was clear that Dario wasn't going to be easy to outsmart, but they were determined to try. After a few moments of discussion, the suggestions and comments began to come in.
Ask him about Miss Winslet's first commercial.
No, that's far too easy.
Ask her what she likes to eat. That's too vague.
David leisurely walked up and down the stage, listening carefully to the suggestions. After listening to quite a few proposals, David smiled and looked at his friend.
Mr. Foster, you said that you've been paying attention to Miss Winslet's career. Can you tell us the name of the acting role that Miss Winslet is most satisfied with? He asked.
The crowd cheered, amused at how impossibly difficult a question it was. Although she hadn't acted in a huge number of roles, it would be a very difficult task to single one out as her favourite. It was the sort of question that only Jade, and perhaps those who knew her best, would be likely to know the answer to. The noise subsided as the guests and reporters waited to see what Dario's reaction would be. Jade frowned. Even I have to think carefully about the answer, she thought. How could Dario possibly know the answer to that? She looked at Dario with a slightly troubled expression, expecting him to look confused, but his appearance was as calm as ever. His look seemed to be telling her not to worry, as if he was trying to tell her that everything was going to work out fine. Jade could feel her heart beating faster. Then, Dario did something that surprised even Jade. He wrote down the answer before she did. He then sat with a confident expression, as if utterly certain that his answer was correct. Jade was too afraid to write anything. What if my answer is different from his? It would humiliate him. I don't want to embarrass him, she thought.
Miss Winslet, Mr. Foster has already written down his answer. Why aren't you writing anything? David asked, a curious expression on his face.
I'm thinking, she replied nervously. Dario gave her an encouraging look, and she wrote down her answer with a trembling hand.
All right, could you both please reveal your answers?
David shouted excitedly. They both turned their cards around at the same time, and the crowd went wild with delight. Oh my God, the two of them actually have the same answer. Their handwriting is beautiful too. On each of their cards was written, The Holiday Home. Even Jade herself was shocked. How could he possibly have guessed that? She thought.
Mr. Foster, are you cheating?
David asked with wide-open eyes. Although David and Dario had planned the game in advance, they hadn't colluded with Jade, and David was surprised that his friend had answered the second question correctly.
I don't know how he guessed that one correctly, but he must love her very much, David thought.
Dario glanced at him indifferently and said,
The role in the holiday home was her first time playing one of the main characters, and her performance was excellent. It was my favorite performance of hers, and I hope that she might agree, but I didn't expect to get that one right, he said.
Dario's words revealed a deep understanding of Jade, and the fact that they had developed the same opinion created a meaningful connection.
Miss Winslet, do you agree with everything that Mr. Foster said? David asked.
Jade nodded shyly. Yes, the holiday home was my first time acting as one of the characters. I enjoyed making the movie a lot, so I cherished the memory, Jade answered truthfully. It was during the making of the holiday home that she had argued with Rosie. The director had seen Rosie slap her, and it had drawn his attention to Jade's potential. He had then changed Jade's part from a minor one to one of the leading roles. She'd been very happy and had enjoyed making the movie. It had been her first major break in the entertainment industry. Evelyn and Monica were watching the drama unfold from below the stage. They both felt deeply sad as they watched Dario and Jade seemingly getting closer and closer. Any chance of either of them ever being with Dario had gotten more and more remote. Bruce also watched with increasing hatred and jealousy in his eyes.
I never expected that someone like Dario would ever fall in love with Jade. How can he answer all these questions? This is unbelievable, he thought.
Bruce knew that he wouldn't have been able to answer either of the questions, since he had never taken an interest in Jade's work while they'd been together. He had only become interested in her acting when he had started to follow her obsessively online. When she'd been acting in minor roles, he'd never been to see her on the set or watched anything that she'd acted in. Maybe that's why he had lost her. Episode 395. A tricky answer.
Wow, he actually guessed it again,
cried David with a smile.
It looks like Dario really loves Miss Winslet. What should I ask for question 3? It looks like film questions are too easy for you. So, let's ask something different. Dario, can you guess what Miss Winslet likes to eat?
Some of the female guests felt that this question was too hard. Jade and Dario had only just reunited that day after 5 years apart, so how would he know what she liked to eat? Furthermore, Jade never gave out personal information on Instagram, so no one knew her favorite foods. However, Jade heaved a sigh of relief because this question was straightforward for them. Dario cooked all her food. How could he not know?
David, that question's too hard,
shouted a woman in the audience. Are you trying to make things difficult for him?
I'm not making it hard on purpose. They promised me they would play this game. Besides, if you really love someone, you should know what they like. If Dario has been paying attention to Miss Winslet, I'm sure he can guess it.
Jade raised her eyebrows. She wanted to write down her favorite chicken dish, but then a mischievous thought popped into her head. Dario had answered the first 2 questions very easily, and that had embarrassed her a little. Maybe she came across as too easy to pursue. So she decided to trick him with her third answer. She smirked as she wrote some words on the card. She didn't believe that he would ever be able to guess the answer. She hadn't noticed that Dario had spotted her change of expression. He was observing her keenly, trying to stay in control of the situation. On this occasion, he waited a long time before writing anything. She didn't know if it was intentional or if he was stuck. After 3 minutes, David had to chivvy him along.
Dario, hurry up and write down your answer. Let's see if you really care about Miss Winslet. Can you guess her favorite food?
Dario lifted his eyes and looked at Jade tenderly. Even suspecting that she was going to trick him, his love for her was still visible for all to see.
It seems that with David in charge, it won't be easy for me to win a dance with Miss Winslet.
Then he picked up the pen and, without hesitating, wrote 3 words. The tension in the banquet hall reached a new peak. Everyone looked nervous. Would he get the right answer? Jade also seemed a little panicky. She was now regretting her decision. She wanted Dario to guess correctly, but at the same time, she wanted him to fail. She didn't want him to lose face, and she didn't want him to be disappointed either. If he couldn't guess the third answer, then she wouldn't be able to dance with him, and she had never danced with him before.
Dario, this is the last question. Whether or not you can invite Miss Winslet to dance will depend on your final answer. Consider carefully.
When Dario put the pen down, everyone held their breath. Some people were staring fixedly at his card and couldn't wait to know the answer. They held their breaths, engrossed in the drama. Dario's expression held a mixture of calm, trepidation, and excitement. Jade chewed her lower lip. Suddenly, her heart ached for the man standing before her. He had done so much for her, but she had just chosen to deliberately tease him. This made her feel guilty.
"All right," David said excitedly. "Since you've both written your answers, let's see if you can dance together tonight."
He had built this up to be the most exciting part of the evening. Holding the card against his chest, Dario refused to reveal his answer immediately. Instead, he said to Jade in a clear and loving voice,
"Miss Winslet, these 3 questions have all been really hard, but the prize is just one dance, and that's not enough for me. If I answer the 3rd question correctly, I hope you can give me your reward within a year. Marry me."
Dario was addressing Jade with his words. However, in reality, he was talking to the reporters and the guests. He deliberately wanted them all to know that he was going to marry her. This way, when they held a future wedding ceremony, they would not arouse suspicion. People would only think that it was because Dario had pursued Jade that she had agreed to marry him. Her reputation would not be affected in any way.
"Even though you're Dario Foster, you're talking to Jade Winslet, and she's no ordinary person," said David. "Dario, are you so confident that Miss Winslet would marry you within a year?"
Dario's handsome smile put all else in the shade. His eyes gleamed. Anyone who saw his gaze would doubtless become bewitched.
"Of course. From the moment I saw her, I believed that she belonged to me alone. I declare that she will become my wife within 1 year."
With these words, he revealed what he had written on his card. Jade was shocked when she saw his answer. Everyone's eyes were on her. They were all waiting for her to announce her own answer. Was it the same as his? You could cut the tension with a knife. David himself was trembling when he took Jade's card from her. When he saw the word on it, his jaw dropped. When he finally recovered himself, he turned the board around and showed the audience. Their answers were identical. They had both written double salt licorice. Episode 396. Bonus question. The guests and reporters present were astounded and started discussing Dario's answer in loud voices.
"God, you even guessed that one. It's simply unbelievable."
"Dario's awesome. He actually guessed it. How did he do it?" By this point, Dario had already gotten up from his seat and gone over to Jade. He gently extended his hand toward her.
"Miss Winslet, may I have the pleasure of this dance?"
His voice was inviting, even flirtatious. Many people found it irresistible. She blushed. At the same time, she continued to wonder how he had guessed what she had written. Suddenly, the lights dimmed and a spotlight picked them out. A romantic song began to play, and the atmosphere in the hall was transformed. Everyone got up to dance to the music. Jade lowered her eyes and was about to stretch out her hand to Dario when a cold voice suddenly interrupted them.
"Wait!"
It was Monica. No one had expected Monica, another diva of the entertainment industry, to appear just then. David was afraid that she would ruin their plan and wanted to stop her, but he was frightened by her glare and dared not move. Monica confidently fluffed up her hair with an alluring gesture that drew the attention of all the men in the room back to her and away from Jade, who had held the spotlight up to that moment. Does Dario really know Miss Winslet so well? Or did you guys cheat just now? After all, you and David have been buddies for over 30 years. I propose one more question. If you get it right, then you can go ahead and dance with Miss Winslet in peace. I won't stand in your way. But if you can't guess, then your first dance tonight will be with my sister Evelyn. How about it? I don't know if you'll agree to this, Dario. Perhaps you don't really know Miss Winslet that well after all. Monica gave the audience a dazzling smile, trying to win them over. Dario was not surprised that the Harpers would try to cause trouble, but he had done nothing to stop them because he felt he was in control. Stop it, sis. Evelyn was scared by Monica's words. She knew by now that she had no chance to claim Dario, and she had already caused enough trouble. She didn't want to risk further disgracing her family. Monica looked coldly at the 2 people on the stage with David. She didn't believe that Dario had correctly guessed the 3 questions. She was sure he had cheated, and David must have helped him. She didn't believe that Dario would be able to answer the question that she was about to ask.
"Evelyn,"
interjected Rex.
"just let your sister ask another question. It's only a game. Anyway, I don't think there's any couple in the world who know each other so well that they can answer 4 questions in a row.
He looked at the couple on stage with disdain. Anyone who hurt his daughter was not a good person.
I wonder what kind of question you'd like to ask,
Dario asked indifferently. From start to finish, he had maintained his composure. He didn't feel at all flustered by Monica's sudden appearance. You only have one chance. Monica raised her eyebrows haughtily. If you can't answer this question, will you dance with my sister? Dario stayed calm and replied in a deep voice. All right. In that case, continued Monica, please write one more answer. Everyone knows that Miss Winslet has just started to film a new movie called The King's Palace. Just now, you guessed her favorite food in real life. Can you guess what her favorite food in the movie is? The audience gasped. They all thought that this was an impossible question, much trickier than the previous 3. Even Jade frowned. She hadn't expected Monica to ask about the drama. Palace hadn't yet been released, and even if it had been, few people would remember details like that. The only people who knew the answer were those who had read the script and those working on set. The female guests were unhappy that the question was so difficult, and they called out to Dario. Don't worry, if you can't guess, we'll help you. Yes, we'll check the movie's Instagram page. We'll think of a way to help you, Dario. As they spoke, they took out their phones and opened the King's Palace crew's social media page to look for clues. Jade frowned again. Clearly, Monica was deliberately making things difficult for them because she wanted Dario to dance with her sister. How could she accept this challenge? Gripping the card in her hand, she felt the anxiety rising. How could Dario pull it off? She knew the answer, of course, but for someone who had never read the script, how could he possibly guess the solution?
Look here, everyone, there's no need to go to any trouble.
Dario spoke in a relaxed manner, as though he were not taking Monica's question seriously. Then, he scribbled a few words on the card and threw a confident look at Jade. Although his nonchalance puzzled her, she wrote down the answer truthfully. Outwardly, she appeared calm, but her heart was thumping. She was extremely nervous that their answers this time would be different. She didn't dare to look at Dario's card, afraid that the outcome would disappoint her. She closed her eyes and announced the answer that she had written down. Her palms were sweating, she held her breath and quietly waited for the result. Episode 397. The First Dance. There was a sudden hush, a strange atmosphere in the air. Jade grew more and more nervous. Just when she thought that this game was about to fail, the audience erupted. Oh my God, Dario's incredible. He knows everything. Wow, he's a real live Prince Charming. Oh my God, looks like Miss Winslet is destined to become his dance partner today. Hearing those comments, she opened her eyes and looked at Dario's answer. It was identical to hers. They had both written 3 words: spit, roasted venison. That was the favorite food of the character Jade played in the King's Palace. Jade's eyes teared up. She really hadn't expected him to know even this detail. Did it mean he had read the script behind her back? Or was he really connected to her in some deeper way? She felt she could never regret spending her life with a person who loved her to such a degree. Monica was left speechless. If he had anticipated the first 3 questions or had colluded with David, that would explain why he had easily known the answers. But this was a question that Monica had asked herself at the last minute, and he still got it right. She had lost. Fair and square, in his eyes, she would never be as good as Jade. The discussion among the audience picked up again. God, this is simply miraculous. How did Dario guess? Has he read the script? The lighting engineer turned off the lights in the banquet hall, leaving only a spotlight on the stage. Dance music began to play over the speakers, and the atmosphere once again became very romantic. Dario gave Jade a loving glance and made an inviting gesture. Jade's eyes were moist, and her mouth turned up in a gentle smile. She extended her hand to him. He took it and elegantly drew her into his arms. Following the music, they began to dance. Jade didn't know how to dance well, but under Dario's lead, she was able to keep up. Although she almost stepped on his feet a few times, Dario was able to gently correct her movements. His intuition intoxicated her. This was the first dance of the banquet, and also the first time Dario and Jade had danced together. The crowd applauded them, and then they found their own partners. Soon the hall was filled with music and dancing. Yet, despite the romantic and joyful atmosphere, the Harpers and the Stevens were fuming. Seeing the happy couple dancing together on the stage, Evelyn felt like her heart was about to break. Her eyes were red and swollen and filled with tears. After watching for a while, she could take it no longer, and she rushed out of the hall, followed by her family members. Because the lights were dimmed, no one noticed their departure. "Hubby, you know this song, let's dance too." Ivana took advantage of the moment, wrapping her arms around Bruce's neck. She wanted to capture his attention with her sexy moves, but no matter how she tried, his eyes remained fixed on Jade and Dario. He pushed her away coldly. "I don't feel like dancing." Then he too left the hall with a final cold glance at the stage. Jade had placed one hand on Dario's shoulder, and with the other, she lifted the hem of her skirt. Pointing her toes, she stepped gracefully, circling him to the music of the waltz. They were engrossed in the dance and each other. Like fireworks dancing in the night sky, their hearts circled each other, just as their bodies spun around each other, faster and faster, closer and closer. Jade took advantage of a lull in the music to whisper a question in his ear. "Dario, how did you know the answer to that final question? And how did you know I would say double salt licorice?" Double salt licorice was uncommon and an acquired taste. She told very few people that she liked it and never thought Dario would be able to read her mind that way. Dario held her waist in his strong hands. His eyes twinkled as he replied in a low and sexy voice, "Don't worry. When we go deeper, I'll tell you." His hands descended to her butt. She instantly understood what he meant and blushed to her roots. She glanced around, but luckily, no one was looking at them. She punched him lightly on the chest and said softly, "Hey, there are so many people here. Where's your sense of propriety? Can't you move your hands? This is supposed to be a waltz, not a—" "This man is shameless," she thought, still blushing. "He's taking advantage of the dim lighting to do whatever he wants, and he's still squeezing my butt." "Move my hands? Don't worry. In a few hours, I'll be moving more than my hands." He pulled her into his arms. His smile was beguiling and his eyes bewitching. Gazing into his face, Jade was lost for words. There were so many questions on her lips. How could he get all the answers right? What had happened 5 years earlier? How was he so in control? But she said nothing. At 9 o'clock in the evening, Walter took his leave and headed upstairs. The guests took this as their cue to gradually disperse. There were no reporters left. The Fosters wanted to keep it secret that Jade was staying at the villa, so they had asked the press to leave once the dancing begun. They had also assigned security guards to patrol the area around the villa to ensure no one came snooping around. Dario wanted no one to know that he and Jade were already living together, so once the evening drew to a close, he asked Jade to leave before him. He hung around to say his farewells to the guests. He would only go upstairs when almost everyone had left. Episode 398. A Full Wardrobe. Jade went upstairs alone. Dario had given strict instructions that the 6th floor was out of bounds, so she knew she would be safe there. His room was unlocked, and she went in and took a bath. Afterwards, she opened the wardrobe in his room and was shocked to find it filled with women's clothes. A third of the space was taken up by nightwear and a third by everyday clothes. The rest of the wardrobe held Dario's outfits. She took a closer look and found that all the women's clothes were her size. She was speechless. Did he intend for her to sleep there from time to time? There were so many pajamas that she didn't see how she could ever wear them all, even if she wore a new set every day. I know he's wealthy, she thought, but why would he spend money like this? She decided to choose the most conservative of all the pajamas to teach him a lesson, and was standing there naked, about to put them on, when the door suddenly flew open. She screamed and held the flimsy material over her body. When she saw it was Dario, she let out a sigh of relief. She remained standing, awkwardly clutching the silk fabric to her chest, and asked, "Why didn't you knock?" Her wet hair was still dripping. Her skin was a freshly scrubbed pink, and she looked divine. Dario was aroused at the sight, and he could only think of one thing. He turned around and locked the door. Then he stepped forward, picked Jade up, and threw her onto the bed. Pressing himself against her, he spoke in a hoarse and seductive tone. "What's all this? Are you so desperate to have me that you're stripping off for me? I like it." He ran his hands over her body and pressed his face against hers. His actions were forceful but gentle. Jade's face was as red as a beetroot. "What are you talking about?" she retorted. I didn't have time to put them on. Anyway, why did you buy so many pajamas? What a waste of money." Dario smiled and lowered his head to her delicate lips. He kissed her hard and then leaned close to her ear. He said with a leer, "Okay, next time don't wear any pajamas. Just sleep naked like me." "Stop it, go away. I want to sleep." She pushed him away and hurriedly put on the pajamas. He didn't mind if she wore them or not, but the sight of the sexy lace around her figure enchanted him. Combined with the scent of her freshly showered body, he could not resist her. Seeing the look of passionate hunger in his eyes, she grew embarrassed. But when she thought about all that he had done for her that day, she felt such love for him. She wanted to reward him, so she narrowed her eyes and leaned forward, planning a kiss on his lips. Although she still felt shy, she pressed her chest against his, feeling him respond and noting the spark in his eyes. But she was surprised when he did not directly pounce on her. Instead, he reluctantly kissed her on the lips and gently covered her with the blanket, turning on the bedside lamp. "Go to sleep," he whispered. "I'm afraid I can't stay." "Oh, are you going out?" she asked in surprise. He nodded reluctantly. "Is it because of your cousin?" she asked him doubtfully. She knew that Evelyn liked Dario a lot, and yet he had just confessed his love to Jade in front of everyone. That must have made Evelyn very sad, she thought. "Then hurry up and look for her," she continued, "but don't let her do anything stupid." Dario was moved by his wife's concern. Evelyn had treated her so badly and still wanted to malign her, but Jade was worried about her. Dario really didn't know what to say. His wife's greatest strength was her kindness, and yet that was also her biggest weakness. She didn't know how to protect herself, which worried him. "You can sleep here tonight. I'll come back as soon as I can." He kissed her forehead. As he was about to leave, she reached out her hand and pulled him back. "Dario, was the masked man 5 years ago really you?" she asked nervously. Although she knew Dario would never lie to her, she wanted to hear him confirm it again. "Yes, it was me, my angel." He stared into her eyes. The gentle and loving way he addressed her made her heart melt. She lifted her eyes, brimming again with tears. She could never have imagined that the person who had saved her 5 years ago previously would actually be Dario. It was simply incredible that their lives had begun to entwine back then. Now she even felt grateful to Bruce for finally having told her the truth and admitted that it hadn't been him who had saved her at that time. Otherwise, she would still be treating him as her savior. If she hadn't suffered a heavy blow that day a few months ago and had gone to the bar to get drunk, she would never have met a man as good as Dario. "Dario, I don't even know how to thank you. You've been guarding me for 5 years. Every time I've been in danger, you've helped me. To have met you again and to be together with you now, I really don't know what to say." She threw herself into his arms and wept. Episode 399. Lucky to be together. "Why are you crying, little angel? Are you so moved by being with me?" Dario smiled and wiped the tears from Jade's cheeks with his palm. There was still some heartache in his eyes. How could he not feel lucky to have her by his side? He had never imagined that the heavens would reunite him with Jade. From the moment he had first set eyes on her, he had felt that they were fated to be together. But it had taken 5 years for him to meet this woman again. Jade leaned tightly into his embrace, greedily inhaling the familiar scent of his warm body, as if he were her entire world. "I'm so lucky I met you, and I'm happy to know the truth. You know what? I just want to be with you every second of every day. As long as I can be with you, I'll do absolutely anything." "I don't need you to do anything. You just need to be my little princess. I'll help you with whatever you need." He gently stroked her back to comfort her. "You're embarrassing me now. We've not been married long. I haven't done enough for you, but you've done so much for me." He tweaked her nose playfully. "Don't be silly. As my wife, I just need you to be beautiful every day, of course," he added cheekily. "You have to be good to me at night." Jade read his steamy gaze and instinctively pushed him away. "I'm talking to you. Why can't you be serious? You're spoiling the atmosphere." "Right. Don't you want to still go and look for your cousin? Why don't we go together?" I should go with him, she thought. If I were in Evelyn's shoes, I'd also feel unhappy. I should explain to her that the two of us truly love each other and ask for her blessing. Dario just pinched her again. He coaxed her back down. "Just stay here and go to sleep. I'll take care of everything. Good night." As he spoke, he tucked her under the covers. She kept hold of his sleeves to prevent him from leaving. You don't need to do it all by yourself. Your wife should face your problems by your side. She didn't want him to bear everything on his own. That was too unfair to him.
That won't do. How can you face such a thing? Besides, I'm so rich and handsome that every single woman in America is chasing me. If you try and face them all, I'm afraid you'll be exhausted. His joke made her laugh. She still felt she didn't really understand him. She used to think that he was very aloof and cold with people, but it seemed that he also had a cute side after all.
You're right. You're the richest, most handsome man of all, said Jade cheekily, sticking her tongue out at him. And the women chasing you are all extraordinarily beautiful. You must go and take care of them quickly and then come back to bed. She had always treated him with respect and kindness, but now their relationship had softened and deepened, and it had become more relaxed. She loved the way that they were becoming like a true husband and wife.
Don't worry. At the right time, I'll naturally let you take care of things. For example, when there's zero distance between us, I'll definitely let you take care of me properly.
Dario held her chin with a smile on his face. He stared at her with smoldering eyes.
Dario, hurry up and leave. You'll ruin me if you keep flirting like this. She blushed again.
If other people knew that this Prince Charming actually had such a dirty mind, what would they think?
Don't miss me too much, he said, with a twinkle in his eye. I know you can't sleep without me. Why don't we work out first so that we can sleep better?
Before she could respond, he had begun to kiss her with passion, sucking on her tongue until she could take it no more. Dario held back his desire and looked at her. He covered her with the blanket and turned off the light before slipping out quietly. When Dario returned to the hall on the first floor, most guests had already dispersed, leaving behind the typical party debris. There were about a dozen people from both the Harper and Foster families sitting around on the leather couches. They stared at Dario with serious expressions on their faces as he descended the imposing staircase. It looked like the setting for an interrogation. Evelyn was sitting quietly in the middle, surrounded by the Harpers, who had clearly been trying to comfort her. Her eyes were red, and she looked distraught.
"Why did you come down so late?" asked Dario's grandmother unhappily. "He was way out of line today," she thought. "Chasing Jade so brazenly was embarrassing, and what was more, he never asked my permission. He was shameless."
Dario calmly took a seat in what was considered his personal place, namely, the most luxurious armchair in the hall. The chair had been custom-made for him by a famous designer and was worth several $100,000. Other than him, no one would sit there. Finally, he replied somewhat wickedly,
"I was saying good night to Jade."
At this, Evelyn's expression soured. Seeing his daughter's sadness, Rex grew angry.
"Donald, look at your son. See how badly he's hurt my daughter? And what does he mean by saying good night to Jade? Is she still here? Is she sleeping in the villa? This is preposterous."
Episode 400, The Marriage Bombshell. Evelyn's grandmother, Hilda, glared fiercely at Dario. She gripped her walking stick in gnarled fingers as if she might whack him with it at any moment.
"Dario, what is going on between you and Jade? Of course we have an intimate relationship. How could we not?"
Dario replied coldly, completely unruffled. The assembled members of the Harper and Foster families were shocked to hear him admit this.
"What do you mean by that?" Rex roared.
"I mean exactly what I said," Dario replied. Seeing his indifference, Rex went red in the face.
"Evidently, Dario doesn't care about my daughter's life at all," he thought. "You better explain this to me clearly," he said. "You're seriously telling me that you're involved with her. What the hell are you doing?"
Monica glared at Dario and said to the others, "They'd been together for a while. They may have only just admitted it publicly, but it was clear that he was only doing that to protect Jade," she thought. Hearing Dario state the nature of their relationship in front of her family, Evelyn felt like he had knifed her in the chest. They've only known each other for 2 months. How could their relationship be that deep? She wondered. But now, discovering that they had 5 years' worth of ties binding them together, she could see that Jade would never let him go. Dario had saved her 5 years ago, so of course she loved him for it. Hilda reacted to Monica's statement with shock and anger.
"What is going on? You and Jade, how could you do such a thing? Don't you know that Evelyn has been waiting to marry you for 20 years? You were childhood sweethearts. We all expected you to get married. You were as good as engaged. How could you treat her so badly?"
Dario's eyes darkened and his tone was frosty.
"I never promised her anything. That was only her wishful thinking. How dare you? Hilda said. Our families had already discussed your marriage. Are you going to go back on your word? They were your words, not mine, he said coldly. I never promised to marry Evelyn, and I never had any intention of doing so. I've been kind to her because she's my cousin, nothing more. I've never been attracted to her, so why are you trying to push us together? He glanced around at them flatly. Jade is the only woman I've ever wanted to marry, and if I don't marry her, I'll remain a bachelor for the rest of my life. None of you have any right to an opinion about my marriage plans. The Harpers may be my relatives, he thought, but they mean nothing to me anymore. I'm only bothering to speak to them today for my parents' sake. This is a waste of the precious time I could be spending with Jade. Hilda was infuriated by his words. Turning to Sharon and Donald, she said, You can't tell me that you agree with him. It's my brother's choice, Diane said, and naturally we don't object. She was actually very fond of Jade and saw how strong their relationship was. She turned a compassionate look on Evelyn. You should take what Dario said to heart. You're young and beautiful, so you shouldn't waste your time on someone who doesn't love you. You can find someone who suits you better. There was a stony silence, interrupted by the appearance of Deborah at the top of the stairs, wearing pink pajamas and a pair of cute bunny slippers. You woke me up. I've got classes tomorrow, she complained, rubbing her eyes. Seeing how sad Evelyn looked, she trotted down the stairs and went up to her, saying, Why are you crying? Is someone bullying you? Tell me who it is, and I'll tell them off for you. Go back to sleep, Debbie, Hilda said. We're busy here, and children need their beauty sleep, don't they? I'm quite old enough to stay up and join in, Debbie said. Don't treat me like a baby. I want to hear what you're talking about. Be a good girl and go back to bed now, Debbie. You have school tomorrow, Sharon said. But Debbie paid no attention and went and sat down next to Dario. Episode 401, The Blame Game. Debbie's appearance caused Dario's chiseled face to soften into a gentle smile. He doted on his younger sister. He used to look at me like that, Evelyn thought. I was like a cherished little sister to him, but I destroyed it all. She was swamped with regret. If I hadn't shamelessly pursued him, he might still look at me with the same warmth he shows to Debbie. Even just being like a sister, loving him from afar, would be better than the mess I've made of things now. I've got important matters to attend to now, Debbie. Be a good girl and go back to bed, Dario said, thankful that his little sister's appearance had eased the tension in the room. Debbie frowned and stuck her tongue out at him. Fine, but I'll get back at you. Diane can come up and talk to me because otherwise I'm not going to fall asleep. She grabbed Diane's hand and pulled her away. Hilda still wasn't ready to give up on getting what she perceived as justice for her granddaughter. This is all your fault, Dario. Evelyn has liked you for 20 years, and you gave everyone the impression you were planning to marry her. Now, you've suddenly changed your mind, and where does that leave us? What is everyone going to think of us when they hear you've rejected her? It's my fault, Sharon burst out guiltily. I'm the one who thought they were in love, and I'm the one who started to treat Evelyn as my daughter-in-law. Dario never actually said he was interested in her. It's my assumptions that are to blame. Sharon began to sniffle, and Donald wrapped a comforting arm around her. Evelyn felt her eyes also filling with tears. Is even Sharon not on my side anymore? She thought. This is too much, Hilda said. Do none of you take the concerns of my family seriously? You have made Evelyn suffer again and again. We can't just let this go. Sharon started to speak, but Dario cut her off to say commandingly, The way Evelyn feels has nothing to do with me. She's hurt because she can't control her own emotions, and you can't blame me for that. Do you expect me to take responsibility for every woman who gets their feelings hurt because I don't care for them? I don't have the patience for this anymore, he thought. The whole Harper family is unreasonable. Protecting Evelyn shouldn't involve implicating anyone else. Hilda looked like she was about to explode, so Sharon rushed over to comfort her. Please don't be angry. I'm sorry that Evelyn's been hurt, and we do all we can to make it up to her. She turned to Evelyn. But my dear, it's enough now. Dario has told you clearly that it's time to give up. Stop making a fool of yourself. We could talk ourselves to death and it wouldn't change a thing. I know I handled things badly, but we can't lay the blame for this at anyone's door. Monica snorted. Dario's right. He has so many admirers that he'd be exhausted if he tried to account for himself to every single one. If you want to blame him, his only fault is being such an outstanding man that women can't resist him. You need to grow up and not be like one of those sheep following him around.
Hilda began to scold her, but Monica said, "I've had enough. This is a waste of time." She spun around and left. David, standing in the doorway, followed her out. For once, Monica didn't chase him away. "Isn't love wonderful?" she thought. "The person you love doesn't love you, but the one you've rejected keeps chasing you. Is that good or bad?" She didn't understand and wasn't even sure she wanted to. She was just so overwhelmingly tired. "Where's your car?" she asked David without turning to look at him. Even though her voice was disinterested, David's heart leapt because she'd actually spoken to him. "It's just around the corner," he said with a grin. "Do you need to use it? I'll get it for you." "You have 5 minutes," Monica replied. David ran faster than he'd ever run in his life, and within minutes, he'd returned with his red Maserati. He pulled to a halt in front of Monica, relieved she was still waiting. He got out to open the passenger door for her, but she slid into the driver's seat. After a moment's hesitation, he got into the passenger seat. She cranked the key and floored the accelerator. She raced all the way into the city centre, weaving through the crazy traffic. She and David maintained a tense silence, the air between them thick with unspoken truths. They were both thinking about all the times she had flirted with other men, knowing he was waiting in the wings, silently having her back, always ready to jump in when she was sad, always there to offer comfort, and they both knew that she would always hate him for it. Episode 402, A Score to Settle. When Monica left, Evelyn thought, "She'll never help me again. I've been selfish one too many times." Wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes, she said, "Mum, Dad, Grandma, you should go. Don't worry about me. I just need a minute to talk to Dario alone." She shot an expectant look at Dario, but he was impossible to read as always. She chose to interpret that as tacit agreement. Rex got in Donald's face. "We need to have a talk too, old man, about your son's lack of manners. What have you been teaching him?" They departed for the study, leaving Evelyn and Dario alone. The room was so quiet she could hear her own breathing. She stood up quickly and threw herself into his arms. It was like falling into a freezer. His response was so cold. He pushed her away and moved to the far side of the room. "Don't touch me," he said, without any of the warmth and tenderness he had when talking to Jade. Evelyn began to tremble. "Why are you doing this to me? I know you don't care about me, but you can't prevent me from loving you. The way you feel about Jade, that's how I feel about you. Surely you can understand my feelings." She felt like she was going insane. She threw herself at Dario, even though she knew what his response would be. She was willing to keep getting hurt for just another moment in his embrace. "I told you I've never loved you. I treated you like a cousin, but I can't manage to even be civil to you anymore. Get out of here before I really start to hate you." He sidestepped, deliberately keeping a distance from her. "It would hurt less if he drove a knife into my heart," she thought, unable to prevent another wave of tears. "He doesn't care how sad I am. Why are you like this, Dario? Even if you don't love me, you should consider my feelings. I'll be satisfied if you just look at me sometimes." "What right do you have to be sad?" Dario interrupted. "When you tried to kill Jade, did you consider my feelings? I've always known you were unreasonable, but now I can see that you're downright vicious. You are poison." Suddenly, she was scared. Why did he agree to talk to me alone? She wondered. Is he going to settle the score? What do you mean? She panicked as his sharp eyes drilled into her, like a wolf seeing its prey. "What do I mean? You know what I mean." He prowled closer, and she could only retreat in fear. "I don't know what's happening. You must have misunderstood me," she said, biting her lower lip. Her pitiful appearance would have moved any other man, but Dario was not an ordinary man. He was the coldest, most ruthless, and, according to rumor, cruelest member of the foster family. "You're no longer my cousin," he said, the corner of his mouth curving into a sneer. "You should be at the police station now, and even your family connections won't be enough to keep you out of prison." He had never come so close to her before. It was what she had always wanted, but now she only wished to escape. She retreated step by step, her lips turning white. She opened her mouth to explain, but no words came out. Trembling so hard she almost fell, she leaned against the back of the sofa for support. "You've misunderstood," she tried to explain. "I never tried to murder anyone. I admit I had some bad intentions. I accused her of pushing me in, but I didn't want to hurt her." "You've been very clever," he said coldly.
but you can't hide from the sight of God or from the law. You are so naive to think you'll get away with this. You used your grandmother and your sister. How do you think they feel? You're lucky Jade is okay, or you'd be living in hell right now. Evelyn was crying so hard that the room blurred around her. But I really didn't. You have to believe me, she said desperately. Episode 403, The Superior Choice. Are you still trying to deny it? Dario asked Evelyn coldly. It will be worse for you if you wait for me to produce evidence. I believe in what I can see with my own eyes. The video footage from the guest room and by the river is enough to convict you. Evelyn's face turned pale. He had released the footage from the guest room at the last minute. I don't care if my methods are underhand, he thought. I'll do anything to find out the truth. I'll pay any price to protect Jade. I didn't do anything bad, Evelyn cried, rushing toward him crazily. How could I ever be so vicious? They were accidents. I didn't know they would turn out like that. When we were in the river, I was in shock. Is that so? I believe the surveillance will tell me the answer. The video is more convincing than what you said, Dario said coldly. Her face went even paler. I may as well admit it, she thought, because he already knows the truth, but I won't be able to bear it if he hates me. Tugging pitifully at his sleeve, she begged, Please forgive me. I was confused. I know I was wrong. I'll never hurt her again. Please don't send me to prison. I won't come near either of you again. I'll only look at you from afar. She crumpled to the ground, head in hands. Dario was conflicted. I have enough evidence to go to the police, he thought. But seeing her like this, I can't help feeling sorry for her. She was such a sweet child. Who would have thought she'd grow up to be like this? She deserves to go to prison, but I don't want to make things difficult for her parents. Sighing, he pulled her to her feet and sat her on the sofa. When you love someone, you don't try to hurt them. Even if you can't be with them, you want them to be happy. So what you feel for me isn't real love. His voice hardened. And if you lay a finger on Jade ever again, I'll make sure no one comes to your funeral when you die. Evelyn trembled in genuine fear. I've never seen Dario like this before, she thought. With wide, disbelieving eyes, she said, Are you really going to be so cruel? Think about our families. It's because of our families that I haven't had you arrested yet, he said contemptuously. But if there's a next time, I won't let you get away with it. If you really want your family to lose all respect for you, then, by all means, carry on behaving like a spoiled child. He had wasted too much time on her. It was time to go back to Jade. Nothing could be more important. He spun on his heel and left the room. Evelyn screamed at his back. Why do you treat me like this? What about me is inferior to Jade? Without even turning his head, he said, She is superior to you in every respect. She chased him to the staircase, but knew that following him would anger him even more, so she sank weakly onto the bottom step and cried into her hands. How can loving someone be so painful? She thought. What part of Jade is better than me? Why does she get all of him, and all I get is wishful thinking? Someone held out a lace handkerchief, and she blinked in surprise. Has Dario returned to comfort me? She thought. But no, it was Isabel, Dario's grandmother. She didn't take the handkerchief. Why are you here? Evelyn asked. Enough tears, the old lady said. No matter how much you cry, he'll never look at you. Why are you putting yourself through this? Isabel's face was full of kindness. Ah, the love and the hatred in these young people, she thought. But actually, I can empathize. I was young once after all. Letting go of unrequited love is easier said than done. Oh, Nana Foster, Evelyn said. I can't live without him. Now that he's with someone else, it's like my heart has died. What am I going to do? Evelyn sat beside her and wiped her tears. No matter how hard it is, you have to let your feelings go, she said. You need a break. The farther away, the better. Didn't you once go abroad to study piano? She could see echoes of her past self in this young woman, unable to get what she wanted, unable to find love, just like Isabel had been. The real reason she was so opposed to Jade and Dario's marriage was her jealousy. Why should it be so easy for Jade to get what she wants, when for us it was so hard, she thought. I went to learn piano to catch Dario's eyes, to make myself so outstanding that he'd eventually notice me. There's no point anymore, Evelyn said. Isabel, do the entire family want Dario to marry Jade? Didn't any of you like me?
I sacrificed so much for him, and Jade got him without even trying, she thought despairingly. I'm just not convinced he can truly love her and throw me away. I'm beautiful, and I have a perfect family. If that's what Dario wants in a wife, then why can't he have me? Episode 404, The Honey Trap.
We didn't have a say in Dario's engagement,
Isabel admitted.
It would be useless for me to oppose it.
In the face of Isabel's helplessness, Evelyn's face crumbled. She no longer had any hope.
All right, stop blubbering,
Isabel said.
It's too late to be going home now. I'll find a guest room for you.
Evelyn numbly followed her up the stairs. As Dario went up to the 6th floor, he passed guards patrolling the stairs, preventing anyone from going higher and disturbing Jade's rest. He went into his study, a large room with a style that matched his aloof temperament. Lucas was waiting for him and asked,
I don't understand what your plans are, Dario. You said you expected Bruce and Ivana to cause trouble, yet you insisted on inviting them. You should know that it's taken a lot of effort and manpower to keep an eye on those two.
Dario poured himself a glass of red wine and sat on the sofa. He swirled the wine around in his glass, sniffing it but didn't drink. With a look of deep satisfaction, he asked,
Tell me, how would it feel for a woman to have her watch her husband salivating over someone else?
Lucas frowned.
Sad. If it were me, I think I'd be pretty angry. You're half right. I think she'd be very lonely, and if a sweet, gentle man were to appear and shower her with love and affection, what then?
Lucas raised his eyebrows.
Are you planning to honey trap Ivana?
Dario stared at the bright red liquid in his glass, his eyes cold and hard.
I'll never forget how Ivana bullied Jade, he thought. No one gets away with hurting her.
He lifted his gaze and stared at Lucas. Although Lucas had spent years in the Special Forces, he swallowed nervously.
Don't tell me you want me to do it. Guess.
He began to panic.
Are you sure?
With my looks, it would be easy, he thought. I certainly compare favorably to Bruce.
I could deal with a woman like Ivana, but...
Dario raised his eyebrows and asked,
What do you think? You're joking, right? If you're serious, I will disappear right now, and you'll never find me. I've been on some difficult missions, he thought. Dangerous ones, too. Give me those assignments, no problem. But hooking up with a woman like Ivana? Kill me first.
Dario laughed.
Why are you so nervous? Did you think I'd really ask you to do something like that? You're my friend, man. I wouldn't throw you under the bus like that.
He had only been teasing Lucas, not expecting him to take it seriously. But his reaction was interesting. Lucas grimaced, but he was pleased to see this lighter side to Dario.
I've been by his side for so many years, he thought, and seen only frostiness. Now that he's with Jade, he's learned to joke around, to loosen up a bit.
The corner of Lucas's mouth twitched.
Actually, I think David would be a better fit for this job.
Wouldn't that be a waste of his talents? Dario said.
He has other uses. Don't worry. I've already arranged everything. I'll let you know when things are in motion.
The corner of his mouth curved in a malicious smirk. One of the objects of their discussion was in a bar 10 miles away. David was having fun with Monica when a shiver went down his spine.
That means someone's talking about me behind my back, he said.
We're drinking, not talking, Monica slurred, hanging off his neck. Finish your drink, or I'll finish it for you. She was exceptionally beautiful in the dim light, and David's throat was exceptionally dry. He drained his glass and found that another was already waiting for him. He downed that too. It didn't quench his thirst in the slightest. Am I beautiful? Monica asked, one slender hand stroking his neck. David glanced around. They were the only customers in the bar's VIP room. The solitude made it even harder to restrain himself. He swallowed, and his gaze drifted down to her chest before he managed to tear his eyes away.
Of course you're beautiful,
he replied softly. Liar, I want to be beautiful, but that man didn't even look at me. Why? Episode 405, Business in Bed. Monica frowned with concern. David thought she looked irresistible.
Monica, Dario doesn't like you. I like you. He doesn't look at you. I look at you. I'd like to look at you for the rest of my life, David told her.
As he lifted his head, his lips accidentally brushed hers. They both froze. Then, as Monica was about to move away, David grasped the back of her head, pulled her close, and kissed her fiercely. He began to kiss her more deeply, as if he wanted to consume her sweet taste. Monica's initial resistance slowly turned into acceptance. She began to respond and pressed against his body. Perhaps it was the influence of alcohol, or perhaps it was the solitary atmosphere that made their desire ignite, but they suddenly couldn't get enough of each other. David ran his hand up her thigh and saw that she didn't resist. He continued to kiss her and caress the curve of her chest and slipped his hand under her blouse. Before he could go any further, Monica stopped him with her hand on his chest. She looked at him intently and asked, "David, will you love me for the rest of your life? Do you really love me?" David kissed her impatiently and leaned close to her ear. He was panting heavily as he told her, "Love you? Of course I'll love you for the rest of my life. I've loved you for as long as you've loved Dario. Every moment you were watching and longing for him, I was watching and longing for you. I love you so much it makes me crazy." Before he could finish, she grasped his buttocks and pulled him to her. But he was afraid to take the next step. What if she gets angry? What if I make a mistake? I could lose her forever, he worried. Monica noticed his hesitation and cried out in frustration, "Coward!" Then she pressed against his body as she slipped off his shirt and then his pants. She kissed him passionately and wrapped her legs around him. David felt as if he was in a dream. Dario was drying up as he stepped out of the bathroom. He crawled into the bed naked and pressed against Jade's body. She was on the verge of sleep as she felt someone caressing her. Before she could open her mouth to tell him to let her sleep, he kissed her lips and slipped in his tongue. His kiss was strong yet gentle, and it felt like he wanted to meld into her body. She opened her eyes dazedly and found her pajama top around her shoulders. Dario was busy under the blanket. Suddenly, she was wide awake. Her face turned red, and she said quietly, "Dario, you're back. Did you get everything settled?" "We shouldn't talk about business in bed. We should exercise," he said suggestively instead of answering her question. He continued to kiss her. Since she was awake, Dario's hands started to move over her body. She barely responded since all she really wanted was sleep. He had seen that his wife was tired, but when he got into bed and saw her lovely face, he couldn't help himself. "Dario, stop it. Did you wake me up on purpose?" she complained. "No, I didn't wake you up on purpose, but when I see you, I just can't control myself," he explained as he pressed against her. Jade could clearly feel his desire. "Dario, why can't you just go to sleep?" she asked breathlessly. He nibbled at her earlobe, and a tinging feeling spread throughout her body. He always knew her most sensitive spots, making her unable to ignore her desire. "You can sleep if there's nothing else you want to do," he said, teasing her. "But it's your fault. You look so lovely today, and every man in the room wanted you. So really, I'm doing this on their behalf," Dario joked, making Jade laugh out loud. Dario felt much better. He'd been worried that what had happened earlier had made her unhappy. Her happiness was his priority. As for those who had hurt her, he vowed that they would get what they deserved. "That's a stretch, but I'm already yours. Didn't you claim me a long time ago?" Jade asked. She tenderly wrapped her hand around his neck and kissed his mouth. "You do realize that before I met you, I was a cold and aloof Prince Charming, uninterested in women or sex. Now that you've turned me into a degenerate, shouldn't you take some responsibility?" he told her. He softly kissed her lips as if they were the most delicate things in the world. No matter how much he kissed her, he couldn't get enough. "Oh, you're still a cold Prince Charming, and I think you've always been a degenerate," Jade said with a giggle. The first time she had met him, she had felt that he was very cold. Only after knowing him for a long time had she realized what he was really like. Seeing that he was amusing her, Dario gave a happy sigh. All his sacrifices were worth it if it meant she was content. Even if it destroyed his image or made her scold him, he was okay with it. "Don't you smile like that. It was you who turned me into this, and now you'll have to take responsibility for it for the rest of your life." Episode 406, Walking Through Walls. As Dario spoke, he finished slipping off her pajamas. Their hot bodies pressed against each other, and the room heated up as well. Jade smiled gently and hugged him tightly. His warmth gave her a sense of security. She, too, was willing to pay any price to be with him. "I think you enjoy being a scoundrel," she said as she kissed him and snuggled into his embrace. Dario felt his body heat up even more. His dark eyes were filled with desire. "Sweetheart, I regret not having made a move on you 5 years ago. I know you've suffered since then. You were even harassed by your own family. I know I let you down," he said regretfully as he stroked her soft hair. When he thought about how helpless and confused Jade must have been in those 5 years, his heart ached. She'd even been forced to live with a person she didn't love by a grandmother who despised her. He should have found her earlier and protected her from all that. Dario, what's past is past. It doesn't matter now that you're with me. Now, I'm the happiest person in the world. You can't have a rainbow without a storm, and Dario, you're my rainbow, she said, and looked up at him with loving eyes. In the past, she'd always felt that her life was dark, and just then Dario had appeared. He had married her and made sure she was safe and treated like a princess. Now her life was as beautiful as a rainbow, full of color. Dario tightly locked his body with hers and kissed her tender lips, as if trying to express the deep feelings in his heart. Holding her petite body, he felt like he held everything he needed in the world. His love for her was infinite. He really wished that he could hold her until the end of time. The two of them kissed each other deeply and caressed each other's bodies. Their movements became more intense. They teased each other with strokes and kisses, as if it was the only way to express their love. Dario kept urging for more, but she refused to leave his arms. As he tried once again to roll on top of her, she pushed him away and said, "Dario, I can't anymore. I'm so tired. Can't we just go to sleep?" Dario looked into her eyes and saw how tired she was. He reluctantly kissed her on the forehead and got out of bed. He helped her slip back into her pajamas, and she fell asleep in his arms. But by then, it was nearly dawn. They both slept soundly until late the next morning. Jade felt the sunlight streaming through the curtains when she jolted awake at the sound of a young, excited voice. "Good morning, big brother. Why are you in bed with Jade? What are you guys doing?" Abby chirped excitedly. Jade and Dario, still in bed, opened their eyes and stared at each other in fright. Then they rolled over and saw Debbie standing beside their bed. Jade felt awkward. Although she was still wearing pajamas, she pulled the blanket up around her shoulders. Then she threw the other half of the blanket over Dario's naked body. "Debbie, what are you doing in here?" Jade asked with a blush. Then she looked at the door in confusion. It looked like it was still locked. She frowned and demanded, "How did you get in? Can you walk through walls?" Jade was mortified at the thought of Debbie watching them in bed. "Why is she smiling at me like that?" she wondered. Dario, however, appeared much calmer, as if he was used to it. He glanced around the room and noticed that the French doors to the balcony were open. The little monkey must have climbed from the balcony of the study next door. "Debbie, you know you're not supposed to come in here without my permission. You dared to come in here to steal a peek? You're just asking for trouble," Dario told her sternly. Debbie acted like she didn't hear him. She stared back at him and slowly blinked her eyes. She showed no fear. Jade tried not to smile. Debbie was probably the only person on earth who wasn't afraid of Dario. She knew that she was his kryptonite. "I gave myself permission. After all, this is my house too. Why shouldn't I be allowed to go where I want? Besides, the security guys aren't very observant," Debbie said with disdain. As Dario narrowed his eyes dangerously, the golden sunlight shone on his face, making him look like an angry Adonis. Jade was entranced and thought, "God, how can he be so handsome? No wonder so many people were staring at him yesterday." But Dario's godlike face was cold as he warned Debbie, "If you dare to enter this room without permission again, I'll break both of your legs." Episode 408. In the news. Sharon felt guilty. She tried to force Dario to be with Evelyn for her own selfish reasons. As a mother, she had failed. If it hadn't been for her, things wouldn't have turned out this way, and Evelyn wouldn't have been hurt. As she watched Dario and Jade, Evelyn's expression turned surly. "I'm full," she announced. "If you will all excuse me, I'm going for a walk." She stood up abruptly and left the room. Jade only realized that she and Dario might have been out of line when she saw Evelyn leave. She pulled away from Dario and quietly ate her breakfast. She had just taken a sip of juice when Walter said, "Jade, have some more. Please treat this like your own home. Don't be shy. Besides, you need to build your strength. Giving birth to a child is hard work," Walter added seriously. Jade began to choke on the juice. She finally swallowed it, wishing that she could turn invisible. She didn't dare reply. Diane laughed beside her, making Jade feel even more awkward. Dario's family was a lot to take. Debbie stopped eating and blinked her big, innocent eyes as she asked jokingly, "Grandpa, why is it hard work to give birth? Is it very tiring to have a baby? How exactly do you make a baby? Wow, Dario, if you get married, you can make a baby. Jade choked and spluttered. She looked at Dario and blushed. He patted her on the back to stop the choking.
Smaller sips, Jade. No one is going to take it away from you, he said. Then he glared at his sister. Debbie, I think you know that's not appropriate conversation at the table. If you continue with this nonsense, I'll swat your behind. Walter smiled at Debbie and said mysteriously, When you grow up, you'll find out.
Debbie pouted and said discontentedly, Why do you always treat me like a child? It's so annoying. I know what they're up to. After all, I'm the one who told our parents he's not a virgin anymore. She stood up haughtily, grabbed her books and declared, I'm going to school. She stuck out her tongue at the table and left in a huff. Dario continued to pat Jade's back. He asked, Better? Jade swallowed and nodded, and then she gently pushed his hand away. I'm fine now, Dario. Go ahead and eat, she told him. Other than an occasional glare from one of the Harpers, the breakfast continued peacefully. Afterward, Diane went straight to work. Without her or Debbie at the table, it was suddenly much quieter. Jade was disappointed when Dario told her that he had to return to Washington right away too. He said that the company had some important matters to take care of, but he promised that he would be back soon. Jade had wanted to go with him, but he was afraid that it would be too taxing for her to fly back and forth. He told her that since it was rare for her to have some time off, she should stay at the house and enjoy some well-earned rest. After breakfast, Jade offered to help clean up, but Sharon insisted that she go back to her room to rest. She said she'd be helping enough in the future, but for now, she should enjoy herself. Jade left the room feeling rather useless. She returned to Dario's suite, but she was bored and turned on the TV. Then, she flicked through a few channels and discovered that the day's news was all about them. She turned on her phone and checked there as well. Everywhere she looked, news, entertainment, and social media, the lead stories were all about Dario confessing his love for her. They all had explosive headlines and lots of photos. Jade specifically looked at the comments on social media. She was surprised to find that most of the comments supported them. They talked about what a beautiful couple they were. Some called them a match made in heaven. Others were impressed that Jade had found such a handsome man. Of course, some said Jade wasn't good enough for Dario and similar things. However, these negative comments were overwhelmed by the positive feedback. Some followers even attacked the people who had made negative comments. Jade was touched by their support and happy that their relationship was being accepted. She wasn't surprised that a man like Dario would gain people's approval. She checked her followers and was surprised to find they had increased by the thousands since Dario's announcement. Because she hadn't released status updates since the event, hundreds of people had gone to her page to comment. Wow, Jade, this is amazing. Oh, Jade, we will always support you. Jade Winslet, you need to say yes to Dario Foster. It's rare to find such a man. I wish you both happiness. Jade continued to read. The articles were mostly about Dario's confession and the gathering of wealthy people at Walter's banquet. However, there was something missing from the news. She'd read many articles about the banquet, but saw no photos of her falling into the water. Nor was anything written about that. She clearly remembered that there had been at least a dozen photographers taking pictures at the time. Could Dario have found some way to prevent them from publishing negative news? Was he able to control that many people in the media? And how did he gain control so quickly? Jade's heart warmed as she considered this. He was always helping her behind the scenes and never told her. She was touched. As for the rest of the news, it was all about Walter's banquet. There were even some stories about Walter when he was young. They recounted his great achievements throughout his life. As Jade skimmed through the articles, she discovered that Walter had become powerful at a very young age. He'd worked hard to gain his way into the ranks of the wealthy. This was especially amazing when she learned that he had started with nothing. Suddenly, she felt even more admiration for him. Episode 409. Don't Answer the Door. No wonder Walter had been able to raise such an impressive grandson. Her mind filled with Dario's image. He'd only been gone for a short while, but she had already started to miss him so much. It seemed like she really couldn't be apart from him anymore. Jade was doing her best to reply to all her fans when she heard a knock on the door. She frowned. That was strange. Hadn't Dario said that no one was allowed to come up to his rooms without his permission? Who would be knocking on the door while he was gone? Then she remembered that Dario had mentioned that if someone came looking for her while he was gone, she should ignore them. However, Jade thought that would be rude, so she opened the door. To her surprise, she saw Hilda and Evelyn standing outside. Evelyn looked awkward as she tried to hide behind her grandmother. She didn't seem happy to see Jade instead of Dario. "Grandma, let's go. We don't want to disturb Miss Winslet," Evelyn said quietly as she tugged on Hilda's sleeve.
"Don't worry, dear. I'll take care of this,"
Hilda said sternly. She looked at Jade haughtily and said,
"Miss Winslet, there's something I need to talk to you about right now. I hope this is a good time for you."
Jade gave her a polite smile and stepped back to let them in. Hilda bustled through the door and sat down as if she owned the place. She made herself comfortable and stared intently at Jade.
"Miss Winslet, I think you know where you come from and why you're chasing Dario Foster. You don't deserve him. My Evelyn has status and is a much better match for him. If you know what's good for you, you'll leave as soon as possible."
Jade wasn't surprised at what they were saying. What did surprise her was that it was Evelyn and her grandmother, not Dario's grandmother, who were threatening her. She wondered if Isabel had sent them, or if they had come on their own just because they were rich and wanted to get their way. No wonder Dario had told her not to answer the door. Apparently, he had expected the Harper family to cause trouble while he was gone. Jade continued to smile politely. She sat down beside Hilda, looked directly into her eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper. I won't leave Dario." Hilda glanced at her with disdain and replied arrogantly,
"Miss Winslet, you're not from New York, so I realize you may not know much about our family. Our name holds as much weight as the Foster name in this town. We have the power to get what we want. You, on the other hand, are just an actress. I could easily destroy your career in entertainment. I could make you disappear overnight."
Jade wasn't threatened by Hilda's words. She looked at her seriously and said, "You're right. I'm an actress, and the entertainment industry is a very complicated place. Sometimes negative news can destroy a career, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. Do you really think that threatening me like this will make me give up on Dario?" Hilda wasn't used to opposition. Her family was not only powerful in New York, but throughout the country. Obviously, this young woman didn't realize who she was dealing with. Hilda stood up and said hastily,
"Miss Winslet, don't cross me. If you make an enemy of the Harper family, there will be no good outcome for you."
Although Jade didn't really know how powerful their family was, she could guess, based on how she saw the Fosters behave. However, the Fosters were Dario's family, so she was willing to put up with their attitude for his sake.
"Are you going to accept my offer or risk my wrath? A person of your standing needs to be reasonable,"
Hilda told her. She was an educated and powerful woman and was frustrated by Jade's attitude. Perhaps she needed to negotiate. She continued,
"Miss Winslet, I think you value yourself too highly. I may be an old lady, but I know what people like you want. What is it you need? Money? Fame? Or I could introduce you to another rich man. Then you can still get the fortune you seek. Isn't that why you're trying to marry into the Foster family, for the money? I promise that if you leave Dario, I can get you a man worth just as much."
Jade sneered when she heard this. Dario's grandmother had assumed the same thing. Was that what all the women of their generation had done, married a man simply for his fortune? "Mrs. Harper, my dream has always been to be an actress. It never mattered if I'm in a big role or a small role. I'll always do my best, and I'll always enjoy it. As for money, I'm perfectly capable of earning my own, and I don't need other people's charity. But when it comes to Dario, love isn't something that can be bought or sold. Please don't think you can treat it that way. When I first met you, I thought that you were a noble, cultured person like Dario's parents. But from the looks of it, being a noble, cultured person doesn't make you a good person," she said sarcastically. She knew that Hilda would be offended by this, but she also knew that if she didn't stand up for herself, they would win. Besides, they hadn't worried about offending her, so why should she be polite to them?
"Watch yourself, Jade. You can't talk like that to my grandmother.
Show some respect. You're not a foster yet, Evelyn said angrily when she finally gathered the courage to speak. Her glare was filled with hatred, jealousy, and worry. And you're not a foster either, just a harper who wants to make a scene. Evelyn, wasn't yesterday's fiasco enough for you? Do you really want to make yet another scene today? Jade asked coolly. The previous day's incident had shown Jade's generosity and had made Evelyn look petty and vicious. When Evelyn thought about how Dario had risked his life to save Jade, she grew angry. If she had known he was going to do that, she would have held Jade under the water herself. Then Jade wouldn't have been able to snatch Dario from her. Evelyn trembled with rage, but realized she couldn't challenge Jade. Jade could easily tell everyone the rest of the story and back it up with the surveillance tape. When Hilda saw her granddaughter so upset, her heart ached. Her dislike of Jade grew even more intense. From what you've said, I assume you don't intend to leave Dario, do you? Hilda asked malevolently. Jade gave her a vicious smile and prepared to tell her clearly and forcefully exactly what she intended to do. Episode 410. Harpers Don't Beg. The only thing that would separate me from Dario is death, said Jade. Who do you think you are? Hilda said disdainfully. You're nothing more than a simple country girl. If you make a name for yourself, you'll just be pretending to be something you're not. I've seen lots of women like you. Jade maintained her composure. She raised her eyebrows and looked straight into the older woman's eyes. Who I am has nothing to do with you, Hilda. You don't have the right to go around telling people who love each other that they can't be together. Don't you see how cruel that is? Miss Winslet, you're going to regret crossing me, Hilda said, her old face adopting a terrifying expression. But Jade had long since gotten used to people trying to intimidate her. When she was growing up, her aunt and uncle had always treated her cruelly, and she had become numb to people trying to frighten her. My aunt and uncle prepared me well for situations like this, Jade thought grimly. You can do whatever you like, Hilda, but unless you kill me, don't expect me to walk away from Dario, Jade replied. This was the first time that she had stepped up to defend her love for Dario against such a hostile foe, and she felt as if she was saying goodbye to the timid Jade. She felt as if she was being reborn, stronger. Do you really think that you can challenge me? Hilda asked threateningly. Hilda, I think you misunderstood. I don't want to challenge you. I've always respected you. It's you and your granddaughter who are attacking me. But I'm not going to just shy away from you, Jade replied. Jade, as far as I know, until very recently, you've always been a minor character. Aren't you afraid that you will end up back where you started in life? You could so easily be a minor character again, a nobody, Hilda said. Actresses only care about themselves and their fame, Hilda thought. She just wants to be a star, and if she fears losing that, then she'll crumble. It wasn't easy for me to get where I am. Of course I don't want to lose everything I've worked so hard to achieve. But it would be even worse to lose the man I love, Jade said truthfully. Evelyn looked at Jade's eyes and saw the love in them. She felt as if she was being pulled between what she wanted and what she knew was right. She looked at Jade with loathing. Why? Why did you fall in love with him? What right do you have? Evelyn shouted. Jade remained calm and said softly, Evelyn, I'm working hard to become a woman worthy of Dario. I know you have money and that you belong to a top family. In many ways, I'm nothing compared to you. But I do have one thing that you don't have. What's that? Evelyn asked, with a look of disbelief in her eyes. What could she have that I don't? She's just an actress, she thought contemptuously. I have Dario's love, and you don't, Jade replied. Evelyn glared at her. I hate this woman, she thought with bitterness. No, you just seduced him. That's not love, she said. He would never fall in love with a woman like her if she hadn't seduced him, she thought. Do you really think it's that simple? If that's all it takes to get someone to fall in love, then why didn't you try to seduce him? Jade asked. Evelyn began to cry. She'd once taken all of her clothes off and stood naked in front of Dario. She had tried to hug him. She'd done everything she could to make herself desirable. But it had all been useless. No matter what she did, he had never looked at her the way she had wanted him to. Why, Jade? Why aren't you willing to leave him? I beg you.
You can give him to me. I've liked him for 20 years. How long have you known him? No one in this world loves him more than me. What do you want? You want money, right? I can give it to you. I'll give you all the money I have. I just want to be with Dario.
Evelyn said piteously. The more Evelyn spoke, the more agitated she became. She even scrambled to take all of the money from her purse. She stopped and wiped her tears, her eyes full of humility. She looked at Jade and saw that her expression remained indifferent. Then she continued. I'll write you a check, and you can fill out the number, she said desperately. Jade's eyes began to soften. She looked at Evelyn with pity. I don't want to see someone reduced to this, she thought. Hilda looked at her granddaughter. Her heart ached to see her so desperate, and she wanted to help her, but watching her beg an actress was too much for the old woman's pride. Evelyn, enough. I won't allow you to beg a woman like this. The Harpers don't beg. Come on, it's time we left, she said coldly. As Hilda spoke, she grabbed Evelyn's arm and began to pull her away. Evelyn burst into tears, again, her eyes filled with despair. Grandma, I don't know what to do. What else can I do? I can't live without him. I know that if she leaves me, he might look at me. I might have a chance. Grandma, you leave. I'll stay and talk to her, Evelyn said, with a pleading look in her eyes. Episode 411. I'll do anything. Hilda sighed helplessly and walked out of the room. As soon as her grandmother had left, Evelyn turned around, grabbed Jade's wrist, and looked at her pleadingly. It was the first time that Evelyn had seen a woman look so humbled in front of her love rival. Let go of me, Jade shouted. Miss Winslet, I beg you. You want to be a star? I can help you. I have the money to help you achieve whatever you want. I don't care if you look down on me. Please, just let me have Dario. I love him, she said between sobs, as she held on to Jade's hand tightly. Jade tried to push her away. Evelyn, Dario isn't something that I can just give away. He's a person, and he wouldn't accept being passed from woman to woman like that. Even if I did leave him, do you really think he would just meekly come and be with you? You've had 20 years to get him to love you. If he was going to fall in love with you, he would have done so already. No, as long as you leave him, he's bound to be with me, Evelyn said confidently. How can she treat people like they're things to be bartered and sold? Jade thought. Why should I leave him, Evelyn? If you really love Dario, you should be happy for him that he's found someone he loves instead of treating him like a thing that can be bought. Evelyn went silent as Jade's words sank in. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she no longer looked beautiful. Jade felt a pang of sorrow for her. It doesn't have to be like this for you, Jade said in a kind voice. You have a lot of things going for you. You could find another good man whom you could be happy with. If you keep on fighting for Dario, you'll only make yourself more miserable. Evelyn looked into Jade's eyes fiercely and tightened the grip on her wrist. Jade felt a surge of pain and took a step backward. Miss Winslet, I know that you must be angry because of what happened yesterday. I shouldn't have accused you. I was wrong. Please forgive me. If you give me Dario, I'm willing to do anything for you in return, Evelyn said through gritted teeth. Then, without warning, she swung Jade's arm in such a way that Jade's hand made contact with Evelyn's face. Jade was shocked and didn't know how to react. Evelyn's grip was surprisingly strong, and she was unable to pull her arm away. Evelyn then struck herself with Jade's hand several more times, leaving red marks on her face. Miss Winslet, stop, Evelyn shouted. I only want to be with Dario. Please don't hit me. Hey, what are you doing? Jade shouted back and pushed her away, successfully yanking her hand out of the other woman's powerful grip. What is she trying to do? Jade thought. The door opened, and Hilda stood in the doorway, her eyes looking fierce. She had opened it just in time to see Jade push Evelyn. What's happened, Evelyn? Hilda asked angrily, as she looked at the red marks on her granddaughter's face. She had heard shouting from outside the room and had returned to investigate what was happening. Hilda was very protective of her granddaughter, and she looked at Jade with fury in her eyes. She held her walking stick high in the air and swung it at Jade with all the strength that her aged body could muster. Jade was slow to react, and she fell to the ground in pain, clutching at her ankle. Hilda raised the stick again and struck Jade across the face with it. Hilda raised her arm in a feeble attempt to protect herself from the blows. You tramp! You actually dared to hit my granddaughter? I think you don't want to live anymore, Hilda screeched. Jade's face hurt where the stick had made contact. She had been beaten by her aunt before, but Hilda was more vicious than she had ever been. Jade felt anger welling up inside. She forced herself to endure the pain, and she stared defiantly into the old woman's eyes. But Hilda didn't seem to care how much pain she inflicted, and she continued hitting her relentlessly.
"It's my own fault," she shouted. "I should never have left you alone with this bitch. I can't believe she actually dared to hit you. Don't worry, Evelyn. Grandma will avenge you."
Hilda looked at Evelyn, who was still crying.
"It's all right, Evelyn. Please stop crying. It breaks my heart to see you so sad," she said,
as she went to her granddaughter and held her in her arms. Monica, who had heard the commotion from downstairs, rushed up to see what was happening. She'd spent the previous night with David and had returned to the foster villa to pick up her family while David was asleep. When she had been told that her sister and grandmother were on the 6th floor, she had gone to find them and had been surprised to hear raised voices. As Monica entered the room, she saw Evelyn pitifully leaning against her grandmother. Jade was sitting on the ground in obvious pain, with one hand clutching her ankle and the other on her face. Resentment and grief were reflected in her pretty eyes.
"Grandma, Evelyn, what happened?" "Monica, you came right at the right time. Come over and see your sister. This tramp hit her."
Episode 412. End up in prison? Jade's expression darkened when she heard Hilda calling her a tramp.
"It's my own fault for being stupid enough to be alone in a room with them,"
Jade thought, feeling dumb and naive.
"I never suspected they would do something like this, but I should have known. It's not as if it's the first time they've tried to set me up.
Evelyn never stops scheming," she thought, and now here I am, beaten up and being blamed for something I haven't done. Monica was surprised as she listened to her grandmother's claims. "I don't like Jade, but she doesn't seem like the type of person who would hit someone for no reason," she thought suspiciously. Maybe she was angry about what Evelyn did yesterday. She glanced at Jade, who had just stood up. Her beautiful eyes looked calm, confident, and defiant. "Grandma, you said that she hit Evelyn. Then why is her face also red?" Monica asked.
"It was me that hit her," Hilda said proudly. "She deserved it for attacking your sister. I won't let anyone hurt my family."
As she spoke, Hilda wielded her stick as if she was ready to strike Jade again. Monica looked calmly at her grandmother and then turned to her sister. "Evelyn, what happened?"
"Monica, Grandma, don't blame Miss Winslet anymore. It was all my fault. I begged her to leave Dario,"
she said, with tears streaming down her face. "What happened after that?" Monica asked. Hilda spoke before Evelyn had the chance to answer the question.
"Monica, you should be supporting your sister, not interrogating her. That horrible woman hit her just because she wanted her to leave Dario. The stupid tramp doesn't even deserve to be with him in the first place, but by hitting your sister, she's gone one step too far."
Hilda looked fiercely at Jade as she spoke.
"Let me tell you, if you ever dare to strike anyone in the Harper family again, I'll teach you a lesson that you'll never forget."
Jade looked back at the old woman and held her hand to her face. It felt hot to touch, and it still stung where Hilda's stick had hit her. "I didn't hit her," Jade said defiantly. She then looked at Evelyn with contempt. "I've tolerated too much from that woman already. I've put up with her because she's Dario's cousin, but I never expected that she would stoop so low." Jade took a deep breath. When she left the Winslet family, she decided that she would never be bullied again by anyone. She looked at Evelyn and said confidently, "Evelyn, it's a pity that you don't want to be an actress. I think with your acting skills, you could probably do very well." She then turned to Monica. "I'm not going to be bullied by any of you. If you want to know the truth, Evelyn grabbed my hand and used it to hit herself. I pushed her away to stop her. Hilda then came in and misunderstood what had happened and hit me with her stick." Hilda shook her head and shouted,
"What nonsense are you talking about? I think you're a crazy woman. Evelyn wouldn't hit herself."
Jade looked at the old woman in the eyes and said, "What I said is the truth, whether you like it or not. Evelyn, you think that you've gotten away with your little trick, but the truth will come out." Evelyn looked at her rival, a confused expression on her swollen face. Jade paused for a few moments and then said with conviction, "Fortunately, Dario has a surveillance camera in this room." She looked at Evelyn and watched her reaction. Evelyn suddenly looked fearful. There are some benefits to being an actress, Jade thought, feeling pleased with herself. She had no idea whether Dario had a surveillance camera in his room, but she spoke as if she was acting in a role, with absolute confidence and certainty. Evelyn's eyes darted around the room, desperately searching for a camera to verify what Jade had said.
I never even thought that there could be cameras in here, she thought worriedly. She had wanted to take advantage of Dario's absence to teach Jade a lesson, and the thought that there could be cameras hadn't even entered her mind. If Dario sees just what happened, he'll never forgive me, she thought. She began to sweat as she considered the likelihood of her subterfuge being revealed. Oh my God, I could end up in prison for this, she thought desperately. Tears began to stream down her face. Monica, Grandma, I don't want to be around this woman anymore. I want to go home. Please take me home. Why would you want to go home now? Things haven't been settled yet, Monica said with narrowed eyes. Evelyn, don't be afraid. With Grandma here, this woman can't hurt you again, Hilda said. Now, tell your sister what happened. I saw that woman push you. If the marks on your face weren't made by her, then who was it? I don't see anyone else in this room. Grandma, Monica, I just want to go home, Evelyn said desperately. Monica looked at her sister suspiciously. If Jade really did hit her, then why would Evelyn be acting like this? It doesn't make any sense. It looked like whatever happened in here, it was Evelyn who started it. Jade looked at Hilda and said in a calm voice, There is no other person in the room, so logically, if I didn't hit her, then she must have hit herself. She paused for a moment and then continued. Look at the marks on Evelyn's face. Are they on the left or right side? Even without video evidence, I think I can still prove my innocence, she thought. Episode 413. Half Moon. Do you think I'm blind? Hilda replied. Can anyone not see that Evelyn's right cheek is red where she hit her? Yes, the right side of her face, Jade said as if she was speaking to a child. Monica also looked at Evelyn's face. Something seems odd about this, she thought. Jade smiled before continuing. Monica seems to have noticed that something is wrong, she observed. I'm right-handed, she said, holding up her right hand as if it was a critical piece of evidence. So if I had hit Evelyn, I would have used my right hand, and it would have left left marks on the left side of her face. Jade paused again, letting the information sink in. Unless, of course, you think that I had time to plan ahead and hit her on the other side of the face deliberately so that I could claim it wasn't me, she added, with an incredulous tone. Hilda frowned as she thought about what Jade had said. What she says does make sense, she thought reluctantly. If she was right-handed, she would have used her right hand to hit her, and I doubt that she would have thought ahead and used her left hand just in case I came back. A sly expression crossed Hilda's face. That doesn't prove anything, she said. It just means that you're even more scheming than I thought. You must have used your left hand deliberately so that you could pretend it wasn't you. Evelyn would never lie about something like this. Evelyn was unnerved by the possibility that there could be a surveillance camera, and by the revelation that her marks were on the wrong side of her face, and she looked sheepish. Monica studied her sister with a disappointed expression. I would never have expected her to go this far, even for Dario, she thought. Evelyn, what is going on? Monica asked. Is what Jade said true? Enough! Please don't say any more. I said I want to go home. Evelyn shouted as if she had lost her mind. She looked at her elder sister pleadingly. Dario was right, she thought. I'm a disappointment to my family. Monica, I was wrong. I want to go home. Please let's go back. Monica knew that by saying, I was wrong, her sister had admitted to lying. Evelyn looked at Jade. Miss Winslet, it was all my fault. I don't expect you to forgive me. I only ask that you don't tell Dario about this. I don't want him to be disappointed in me, she pleaded. She was afraid that if Dario found out about what she had done, he would hate her even more, and that was something she was desperate to avoid. Evelyn, whether Dario is disappointed with you or not, it has nothing to do with me. I suggest that if you don't want him to be disappointed in you, you should think before you act. Evelyn covered her face with her hands and left. Hilda regarded Jade with a slight frown. She looked as if she was about to say something, but then she turned and left abruptly, her walking stick in her hand. Monica sighed helplessly. Although she didn't like Jade, she admired her for the calm and honourable way that she had handled the situation. Monica had never admired anyone before, and the sensation felt strange to her. Jade, I'm sorry for what my sister did. It was wrong. Please don't take the matter any further. Our family will do our best to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Jade didn't intend to take the matter any further, nor did she plan to tell Dario about what had happened, as it would only add to his troubles. She was satisfied that her idol, Monica, had personally apologized,
and she felt her anger subside. Monica, as long as everything is cleared up and we all know the truth about what happened, that's good enough for me. You should go and check on your sister, Jade said. Monica remained surprised at how calmly Jade had faced such a difficult situation, and she smiled at her and then left. As she walked away, Monica found that she felt very differently about things. I don't dislike David so much anymore, or rather, I don't feel like I love Dario anymore. It's like his place in my heart has dwindled and David has replaced him. Surely I'm not falling in love with David, she thought. I can't be. After they left, Jade rushed to the bathroom to look at her face. She was worried that if Dario saw that she'd been hurt, he would feel compelled to get involved and the situation would get out of hand. She was about to put some foundation on when her cell phone rang. She looked at her phone and saw Caroline's name. She answered it, and Caroline told her to pack her things and to meet her downstairs. Caroline was waiting for her in the Foster villa, and she sounded as if she was in a hurry. Jade packed up as quickly as she could and descended the stairs, anxious to find out why her manager seemed to be in such a hurry and what important matter had brought her from Los Angeles. She found her waiting by the front door, looking slightly disheveled from travel but still with her usual air of elegance. As soon as Caroline spotted Jade, she pulled her to one side and explained that her phone had been going wild with requests for Jade to shoot advertisements for a wide range of top brands. Dario's confession of his love for her had spread quickly, and it also caused the demand for Jade to spiral out of control.
In the last 10 hours, Caroline said excitedly, we've had requests for you to do over 20 advertisements and 10 endorsements. The most exciting of them is the Half Moon jewelry brand, and I'm going to take you there now, she added.
Violet told Jade how much the jewelry was worth, and Jade looked at her assistant with wide eyes. Surely you must have made a mistake, Violet. It can't be worth that much, Jade said, as she felt the weight of the jewelry appreciatively. You're an international star now. I think it's time to increase your assistant's salary, Violet replied, smiling broadly. Jade was still looking at the jewelry when she heard a thud behind her. It sounded as if something had fallen down. She frowned, turned around, and saw that Violet was lying on the floor. She then noticed 3 men standing in front of her, all dressed in black and wearing masks. She began to panic and looked around wondering what to do. How did you get in here? She asked. What do you want? One of the men took out a gun and pointed it at her. It was the first time Jade had seen a gun in real life. She was so scared that she couldn't speak, and she froze to the spot. What's happening? She thought. I've come to shoot the commercial. I'm not here to shoot a spy drama. These men don't look like they're here with good intentions. Miss Winslet, don't be afraid. Come with us quietly and we won't harm you. But if you dare to make a sound, then I can't be responsible for what will happen next, one of the men said, as he looked meaningfully at the gun in his hand, which was pointed at Jade's heart. Jade was too terrified to scream, but she asked quietly, What are you guys trying to do? She had heard stories of celebrities encountering all kinds of trouble once they became famous, including being kidnapped, but she hadn't expected that it would ever happen to her. As long as they don't kill me, she thought, I'll make sure they get whatever money they ask for. She felt a sharp pain in the side of her neck, and the pain had barely registered before she slipped into unconsciousness. The man behind her supported her weight as her legs gave way beneath her. The man who had spoken first put away his gun and said, Was that really necessary? There was no need to hurt her. Mr. Foster is besotted with her. If you hurt a hair on her head, he'll cut off your head and use it as a football. The man with the needle looked back at him disdainfully. Then he slid his hand around Jade's waist and gazed at her beautiful face. She has a very nice body, he thought as he smiled and stroked her cheek. She's a real beauty. No wonder Mr. Foster waited 30 years for a bit of this, he said. Get your hands off her, you idiot. Come on. We've got to get her out of here before we get caught, the man with the gun said sharply. What are you afraid of? The man holding Jade replied cockily, although the eyes behind his mask showed a hint of fear, and he began dragging Jade away toward the window. A woman's voice came from the other side of the door. Jade, how are you getting on? The commercial is about to begin, Caroline called through the closed door. After a few moments with no answer, she opened the door and looked in. Her sharp mind took stock of the situation quickly. Violet was lying on the floor, and Jade was in the arms of a man wearing a mask, flanked by 2 other masked men. She decisively asked,
"What do you think you're doing? Who are you? How dare you touch Mr. Foster's girlfriend?"
There was no trace of fear in her eyes as she assessed the men, but the assailants dismissed her as no threat and dragged Jade toward the first-floor window. Caroline saw where they were going and kicked off her high heels before sprinting toward the group with alarming speed. The man nearest to her threw a punch at her head, but she dodged it with remarkable agility and struck him in the neck, causing him to crumple to the floor, gasping for breath. The other 2 men were stunned by Caroline's fierce attack. Episode 415, An Investigation.
"I'll take the woman, you cover the rear,"
shouted the man who was holding Jade as he clambered through the window with her. One of their comrades was already lying on the floor, having been put out of action by Caroline. The third one stood in Caroline's way, while his accomplice made his escape with his quarry. He put his gun away and raised his fists. Caroline threw a punch, which he narrowly avoided. He looked at her with respect.
"I didn't expect a simple manager to be able to fight like that," he said. "Milliken Agency seems to have some employees with hidden talents. I suspect you might be from the Guardian Agency. Am I right? If so, your Mr. Foster has certainly put in a lot of effort to protect the woman he loves."
Caroline narrowed her eyes.
"How does he know about the Guardian Agency?" she wondered.
As soon as the masked intruder had finished speaking, he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen where Caroline's fist had made contact. The man let out a muffled groan.
"She knows how to punch," he thought as he went to remove his pistol from its holster. "I didn't think that I'd need a gun, but it looks like I underestimated her. Mr. Foster likes to surround himself with very capable people."
Caroline's sharp eyes picked up his movement and guessed what he was thinking. She kicked his wrist fiercely, knocking his hand away from his hip, but he had anticipated her move and went for the pistol that he had hidden by his ankle. It was pointing at her head before Caroline could react to the presence of an unexpected weapon. She knew instinctively that if she moved, he would pull the trigger.
"What is it you want?" she asked calmly,
as the man moved forward and pressed the gun against her forehead.
"I don't need to answer that question, not yet anyway. You'll find out soon enough," he replied, and then he laughed and pulled the trigger.
His movements were as agile as a cat's, and he was out of the window before Caroline could react. She watched in shock as he disappeared out of sight. There was a loud ringing noise in her ear from where he had discharged his firearm next to her head.
"He nearly burst my damn eardrums," she thought.
By the time she had recovered enough to give chase, both of the men had gone, along with Jade. Even worse, when she returned to the changing room, the third man, whom she had temporarily disabled, had also escaped. Caroline looked at the spot where the assailant had been and punched the wall in frustration, leaving a bloody mark. Then she took out her phone and called Lucas. Back in Washington, in the Milliken Agency building, Lucas hung up the phone and went straight to Dario's office with a distraught expression. Dario had just finished dealing with his work for the day and was planning to fly back to New York to see Jade. He looked at Lucas's face, and he knew that something bad had happened.
"Mr. Foster, I have something important to tell you," Lucas said.
Lucas had always been both calm and respectful, but he had walked straight into his boss's office without knocking, and there was a distinct look of panic in his eyes.
"What's wrong?"
Dario asked, feeling increasingly uneasy.
"I hope Jade's okay," he thought. "Whatever's happened, I need to see her."
Lucas looked at him uncertainly as he wondered how to break the news. Only when he saw the anger on Dario's face did he say,
"Mr. Foster, Miss Winslet is in trouble." "What did you say? Jade is in trouble?"
Dario asked, as he stood up nervously, his hands shaking. Lucas nodded faintly.
"Miss Winslet went to Half Moon Jewelry earlier today. I didn't expect there to be any trouble. It looks like she's been kidnapped."
Before he could say any more, Dario had rushed past him and out of the office. Lucas followed close at his heels.
Caroline said that they had guns, but they didn't look like they wanted to hurt her, Lucas thought. Whoever it was, they probably wanted to get to Dario by kidnapping the woman he loves.
Dario flew to Philadelphia with Lucas and rushed to the Half Moon Jewelry offices to personally investigate what had happened to Jade. He quickly discovered that all the surveillance cameras in the building had been destroyed, as well as the cameras in the surrounding area. He was sitting in the monitoring room and wondering what to do next when several members of the company's management team entered, looking shamefaced and fearful. Jade had been kidnapped in their building, and Mr. Foster was known to be someone who could make life very difficult for them if he chose. He could even ruin the company if he felt inclined to do so. Meanwhile, Lucas had tried to find some remote surveillance cameras to see if there were any clues, but he had been unsuccessful. His expression was grim, as he considered the best course of action. "Mr. Foster, it looks like Miss Winslet's kidnappers were very well prepared. They must have destroyed all of the cameras in advance and then sent the 3 men into the changing room to abduct Miss Winslet." Dario stared intently at the screens in the monitoring room, and then an idea came to him. How did they know that Jade was here to shoot an advertisement? The employees from Half Moon Jewelry looked at each other nervously. That's right, Lucas thought. It had only been agreed this morning, and Jade arrived within hours of agreeing to do the commercial. Other than Caroline and the management of Half Moon Jewelry, no one else would have known about Jade being here. "Mr. Foster, we really don't know what's going on. Our company's security has always been good, but we didn't expect that anyone would try to kidnap Miss Winslet. I know that we were responsible for her safety, and I hope that you can give us a chance to investigate the matter properly," one of the managers said in a flustered manner. Episode 416. Where am I? Lucas looked at them coldly and then turned his gaze to Dario, who also had a hostile expression. "You expect us to leave the investigation to you?" Lucas asked incredulously. "You couldn't find your own backsides, let alone a kidnapped person." He then turned to Dario and said, "Mr. Foster, it seems that whoever took Miss Winslet came well prepared. I suppose we can't really blame these people." Dario was furious. The managers of Half Moon Jewelry are buffoons, he thought. Then he stood up, looked at them contemptuously, and left. Lucas followed closely behind. Dario sat in the black Ferrari that Lucas had arranged. They rarely came to Philadelphia, and Lucas had bought it as soon as their plane had landed. Lucas turned and looked at his boss, whose expression was frightening. "Mr. Foster, Caroline said that there were 3 men, and they were all armed with pistols. They knew what they were doing, and they came specifically for Miss Winslet. They also knew that Caroline was a member of the Guardian Agency. I think that whoever we're dealing with is a serious opponent." "Opponent," said Dario dismissively. "There's no one who could be a serious opponent for me," he thought. Then something came to his mind. He remembered how Miranda had been kidnapped. "I wonder if there's a connection between the 2 kidnappings," he thought. "I believe they captured Miss Winslet to use her as leverage for something they want from you. It was clear from what Caroline said that it wasn't their intention to hurt her. It's very likely that she's safe and well," Lucas said. "I don't just want her to be safe. I want her to be back with me and completely unharmed," Dario said, with killing intent. Lucas didn't reply. He knew that his boss would do anything in his power to get the woman he loves back in one piece. Revenge would come later. "These are no ordinary kidnappers," thought Dario. "If they were, I'd crush them like ants. These opponents are intelligent and well-organized. I wonder if she's scared right now. She won't be able to sleep without me by her side tonight." Dario became increasingly irate as he thought of Jade feeling scared and alone. Lucas looked at his boss and he frowned. He's always so calm, no matter what dangers he faces. But he looks like he's on the verge of losing control right now. He values her life above his own. "Mr. Foster, what do you think we should do next?" Lucas asked. Even Lucas, who was an expert at finding people, was unsure of what the next move should be. Without any surveillance footage or clues of any kind, it was difficult to know what to do. Dario's dark eyes looked dead, and his fists were both clenched tightly. He forced himself to remain calm as he said, "We wait. They went to great lengths to capture Jade. Their goal was obviously to get to me, so they're bound to contact me," Dario thought. "Why did I not stay by her side to protect her? If she's suffered any harm, I'll never forgive myself." Late that night, Jade woke up feeling groggy. She opened her eyes and shook her head. She had a splitting headache. She narrowed her eyes and looked around. She was in a luxurious room, but it was completely unfamiliar to her. She rubbed her eyes and found that the room seemed to be swaying from side to side. It made her feel uncomfortable, and she felt like she was going to be sick. She could hear the sound of water. Confused, she got out of the bed, walked over to the window, and opened the curtains. "Oh my God, I'm on a boat," she realized. "Where am I?" Jade could see in the dim light outside that several guards were standing on the deck. They were all holding firearms, and they looked well disciplined. They reminded her more of professional soldiers than criminals. She felt panic rising. These are clearly serious people, she thought. She looked again around the room. Whoever owns this boat is obviously very rich, so why would they bother kidnapping me? Her heart beat faster, and her breathing became shallow as she wondered what to do. I'm out at sea, so how can I possibly escape? Even if I got the chance, I can't jump in the water. It would be as good as committing suicide. She took a deep breath to calm herself down. Then she looked around for her phone, but she couldn't find it. She sighed. What am I thinking? Why would the kidnappers leave me my phone? She walked over to the door and was about to open it when it swung open with a bang. She was stunned. In the doorway stood a tall man wearing a gold-colored mask. He had an aura of authority. Episode 417. Like a demon. The man in the doorway was flanked by 4 other men, each of them wearing a mask. They all looked muscular and powerful. I think that I recognized the 3 who took me, Jade thought. All she could see on their faces was their eyes, and they made her shudder. They looked cold, and they showed no trace of emotion as they looked at her. Who are these people? She thought, feeling increasingly fearful. The man in the gold mask must be the leader. The leader stepped forward into the room, closely followed by 2 others who then proceeded to pick up a luxurious-looking seat and move it to where he was standing. He sat down imperiously, and one of his men poured him a glass of red wine. Jade watched the drama unfold in a state of shock. The leader took the glass and swirled the wine around gently. Jade imagined that he was smiling behind the mask, but she couldn't be sure. Welcome, Miss Winslet, he said in a pleasant voice. Jade took a step backward, unnerved by him using her name in such a familiar way. Who are these people? She thought again. She tried her best to remain calm. What do you think you're doing by bringing me here? Is it money that you want? If so, how much do you want? It can be arranged as long as you let me go. Do I look like I'm in need of money? The man asked contemptuously. If not for money, why would you kidnap me? Jade asked, her fear increasing. You're very tiresome, Miss Winslet. I really can't imagine how Dario fell in love with you. Jade was shocked and angered by the man's words. What? I've never been called tiresome in my life, she thought, deeply offended. Is he implying that Dario only likes me because of my looks? And does he really think that it's tiresome of me to ask why I've been kidnapped? He's a very unreasonable man, Jade thought. Then an idea occurred to her, and she asked probingly, Well, do you know Dario? Do you have a grudge against him? Did you bring me here to get to him? The man looked back at Jade with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Then he slowly lifted the glass to his lips and took a sip of wine. It seems she's not as stupid as I thought. Very good, Miss Winslet. You're correct. Your brain actually seems to work. Jade had based her guess on the man's reaction when he had mentioned Dario's name. He had seemed to recoil slightly with a look of disgust in his dark eyes. Jade's instinct told her that he might be jealous of her husband. He doesn't want money, and he certainly didn't bring me here for my company, so it's only logical that he must be trying to get to Dario, she thought. I feel like I've let Dario down. I'm always causing him trouble and relying on him to save me, and now this man might use me to hurt him. I need to find a way to escape so that Dario doesn't put himself in danger trying to rescue me. I'd rather die than let this man use me to hurt my husband. Oh, do you think my brain works? She said. I think my brain is none of your business. Jade looked around her, trying to take in her surroundings and establish if there was anything that could help her to escape. The man looked at her quizzically. He wasn't used to being spoken to with even the slightest hint of disrespect. His minions exchanged glances. No one had ever dared to speak to their boss in such a way. At least, no one had done so and lived. The man in the gold mask gripped the glass in his hand tightly, and just before she thought it was about to shatter, he handed it nonchalantly to the man nearest to him. As his hireling took the glass, the leader placed both of his hands on the chair and supported his weight as he stood up. He gave Jade an evil-looking smile, all the time maintaining eye contact with her. He looked like a demon. Jade frowned and suddenly felt very afraid. She stepped backward, her instincts telling her that the man in front of her was very dangerous. I need to be careful, she thought. I don't want to let him get close to me. This woman is turning out to be quite interesting, the masked man thought as he watched her, trying to put distance between them. Jade continued backing away from him until her back touched the wall. She knew that she couldn't retreat anymore. I'll fight him to the death if I have to, she thought. Don't come any closer. Get away from me, she shouted. She looked around frantically, but couldn't see anything that she could use as a weapon, so she took off her high-heel shoes and held them in front of her, ready to strike out at him. The man watched her with a sense of amusement. She has spirit, he thought. He smiled and then moved closer. Get away, she shouted again. As soon as he was in range, she swung the heel in her right hand at him, but he grabbed her wrist, and she quickly found herself disarmed with both of her shoes thudding to the floor. Episode 418. Where are you? The man held Jade's wrists firmly, preventing her from striking him, and although she struggled with all her strength, she couldn't escape from his iron grip. If I can't use my hands, I'll use my feet, she thought. But just as she was positioning herself to kick him, he pressed his whole body against hers, pinning her against the wall. He stared directly into her eyes, and she shuddered. He raised one of his hands and grabbed hold of her chin, forcing her to look at him. She is beautiful, he thought as he observed her. I can now see why Dario is so infatuated with her. Jade was preparing herself for a fresh burst of resistance when he took hold of both her arms in a firm grip and looked at her as if sizing her up. What are you doing? Stop staring at me like that, you pervert, she said. She almost added, I have a husband. But she stopped herself in time, as if her marriage to Dario was still a secret. The man was surprisingly strong, and he was able to control both of her hands in one of his, while still appraising her at his leisure. When he heard her say pervert, his mouth twitched. No one's ever called me that, he thought, further intrigued by her spirit. What's so interesting? Have you never seen a woman before? Jade muttered challengingly. The man's hirelings both swallowed hard, and one even tried to catch her eye with a shake of his head, as if willing her not to provoke her tormentor. They were surprised when their boss remained calm and said, So it is you. Jade felt her fear increase. What are you talking about? What do you mean by that? She asked. The man smiled and continued. Have you forgotten about me? If it wasn't for me, you would have died 5 years ago. What are you talking about? Jade asked again, disbelief in her eyes. How does he know about what happened 5 years ago? And I already know that it was Dario who saved me. It had nothing to do with this man, whoever he is, she thought. An image flashed through her mind from 5 years ago. The person who saved me wore a mask too, and he had cold eyes. I remember that much. But Dario has already told me it was him who saved me, and he would never lie about something like that, she thought. It seems that you have really forgotten about it. But 5 years ago, you didn't see me, so I can't blame you for not remembering me, he said, in a surprisingly magnanimous tone. Jade rolled her eyes in frustration. What is this all about? She asked. She wasn't interested in discussing with him what had happened 5 years before. She wanted to know what he intended to do with her and what he had planned for Dario. What kind of grudge do you have against Dario? Why did you bring me here? She asked with a confidence that surprised her. The man's dark eyes met Jade's. You don't seem to be afraid of me, he observed calmly. It's been a long time since someone has been so brave with me staring into their eyes, he thought. Jade looked away and calmly replied, No, I am afraid. But I know that the more scared I act, the happier you'll be, and I don't want to give you the satisfaction. The man laughed, and Jade noticed a playful look in his eyes. She really is quite an interesting little thing, he thought. Don't worry. Until your man dies, I'll make sure that no harm comes to you. Jade's heart skipped a beat as she absorbed the meaning of his words. Why are you doing this to him? Did he offend you in some way? Dario does what he wants in life, and I can imagine him offending people along the way, but not to the point where anyone would want him dead, she thought. I think he's jealous of Dario. It's the only explanation. The man looked at her indifferently, as if he had no interest in explaining himself any further. Stay here, and don't waste your energy trying to escape, unless you want to jump into the sea and feed the sharks, he said coldly. Jade went to follow him, but as she reached the door, one of the guards slammed it shut. She heard the distinctive sound of a lock clicking into place. She tried the handle, but found that it wouldn't move. She kicked the door several times, which only resulted in a sore foot. Exhausted, she leaned her body against the door frame and cried. Dario, I'm so scared. Where are you? She said between sobs. What worried her most wasn't her own safety. It was that Dario would have no idea where she was. If he returns to the foster villa and can't find me, he'll be so worried, she thought. I remember how upset he was when I fell into the river. When he finds out that I'd been kidnapped, he'll be distraught. Jade banged on the wall. It's all my fault, she thought. Why do things always happen to me? Why do I keep making Dario worry about me? She took a deep breath. The question is, what do I do now? How do I get out of this place or get a message to Dario? The man isn't going to be easy to escape from, she thought as she sat against the door and hugged her knees to her chest. The floor felt cold to the touch, and she yearned for Dario's warm embrace. Dario, where are you? I miss you so much, she muttered. The masked man returned to his room, which was even more luxurious than the one he had left his captive in. He sat down, took a sip of red wine, and savoured the taste. Classical music was playing, and he listened to it intently. It was a calm piece of music and seemed very out of character for the person listening to it, but he enjoyed it nonetheless. Episode 419. Do not touch her. Kyle, his right-hand man, poured his boss another glass of wine. A thought suddenly occurred to Kyle.
Sir, when will we make the next move? I can't wait to see Dario's downfall. He must be feeling utterly helpless by now. I bet he's desperate to know where Jade is. He probably thought that he was untouchable, he said. Then he smiled lewdly and added, I've thought of one way to make Dario suffer more than if we inflicted the most horrible death.
Kyle's boss, Sam Jamison, instantly saw through the man's sordid thoughts, and he looked at him contemptuously. The glass in his hand suddenly exploded, sending shards flying through the air. The red liquid flowed down his hands, and it looked like blood. The room was filled with the distinctive smell of wine. Kyle realized too late, that he had angered him, and he wished he could take back his words. He immediately took a cloth and went to wipe the wine from his boss's hand. All the while, the golden-masked man stared coldly at his minion.
Do not touch her. Do you understand?
He whispered in a soft but threatening voice. Kyle began to sweat, and he wondered what the best way to appease his master's anger would be.
Boss, why can't you touch her? Last time, that idiot caught the wrong woman, but now we know for sure that this Jade is the woman he loves. He didn't care at all about Miranda, but he clearly loves Jade. He openly confessed it to the whole world.
Kyle's confidence grew as he spoke. He thought that his employer's silence meant that he had escaped punishment, but he was wrong. As quick as a snake, Sam grabbed his right hand and twisted it behind his back, dislocating his muscular arm. Kyle screamed, gripped by fear.
Sir, please,
he begged. Kyle was a well-trained fighter, but he was no match for his boss, and he felt only terror at the thought of what might be to come. The other man in the room, Phil, looked on with a cold expression.
Why is the boss so angry about the thought of hurting our prisoner?
He wondered.
What's so special about her? I wonder if what the boss said in the room was true. Maybe he did save that woman 5 years ago. Sir, I know I was wrong. Please don't do this. I'm sorry,
Kyle said, pleading for his life. He knew that his only chance was to beg for mercy.
I'm warning you,
Sam said in a disturbingly quiet voice.
Do not touch that woman. I won't allow anyone to disrupt my plans, and the consequences for anyone who does will be severe.
His voice sounded as if it had come from the depths of hell itself, and Kyle visibly shivered as he took in the threat.
I should have known better, Kyle thought. I've seen what happens when people anger the boss. Get out of here,
Sam shouted disgustedly, and he kicked Kyle hard in the stomach, sending him flying across the room. Kyle crumpled to the floor and spat out some blood as he tried to breathe. He looked at the blood that came out of his mouth, fearful that the force of the kick might have inflicted internal injuries. He did his best to ignore the pain and stood up. He took a step forward and then kneeled on the ground in front of Sam.
Boss, please forgive me. If I've offended you, then I deserve to die.
Phil glanced down at his comrade. They'd been brothers in arms for many years, but he knew that he couldn't show any mercy in front of their master.
He deserves whatever he gets for provoking the boss,
he thought.
He should have known better. Boss, since the most important person to Dario has fallen into our hands, what shall we do next?
Phil asked tentatively. Sam gracefully returned to his seat and smirked.
There's no hurry. The game has just started. I want to see how Dario reacts when he finds out that we have his woman in our hands. We'll soon find out just how important she is to Dario.
he thought. The more frantic Dario gets, the happier I'll be. His source of pain will be my source of happiness. Jade sat by the door all night and didn't sleep at all. Just after dawn, 2 maids opened the door and helped her to her feet. They brought hot water for her to wash her face and a toothbrush to clean her teeth with. They fussed over her and tried to help her wash, but she quickly grew frustrated with them and said, "I'll do it myself." After washing, Jade still felt deeply fatigued. One of the maids politely said, "Miss Winslet, please come with us. Your breakfast is ready." Jade wanted to refuse, but the mention of food had awoken her hunger. "I have to keep my energy up," she thought. "When the time comes, I'll need all the strength I have. Dario must be so worried about me. I need to keep my head clear and my body strong so that I can make the most of any opportunity that comes my way." Jade followed the 2 maids out of the room. As they went, she did her best to observe her surroundings. She noticed that the atmosphere on the yacht was very tense. There were guards posted at regular intervals, and they were standing, expressionless, with a level of discipline that Jade had never seen before. "If I didn't already know I was on a yacht, I'd think I was on a Navy warship," she thought. "It's almost like they're not human." She followed the maids to a dining room on the 2nd floor. It was surprisingly large for a yacht, and there was a long table in the middle. The table had a wide range of dishes on it, and the food looked delicious. Episode 420. Coward. There are a dozen guards in the dining room. It won't be easy for me to leave, Jade thought. She looked around surreptitiously for an exit, but a maid directed her to a table and told her to sit down. "Please wait here, Miss Winslet. Mr. Jamison, the owner of this yacht, will be here soon." Who's Mr. Jamison? She wondered. Could it be the man in the golden mask who came to my room yesterday? Judging from the fear on the maid's face, it could well be the same arrogant ass who had scared everyone before. Her expression soured, and she pushed her chair back to leave. But just as she turned around, the man in the golden mask came up to the table. "What, you want to leave as soon as you see me?" he asked. "Don't you want breakfast?" He loomed over her intimidatingly. "Seeing you has made me quite lose my appetite," she said. His eyes narrowed. He sat in the seat at the head of the table, a luxurious chair that looked more like a throne. He was wearing a black suit, straight cut and elegant. He picked up his knife and fork and looked at Jade over his shoulder. "Please, sit and eat with me. You can call me Sam. You're too pretty to starve yourself. I wouldn't want you to waste away before I've killed your man. I'd rather starve to death than let you use me to get to Dario." The corner of Sam's lips curved up, but there was no trace of humor in his eyes. He elegantly cut into the steak that a waitress had just placed in front of him, savoring it as if it were the most delicious thing in the world. Jade felt a wave of disgust. "The meat on his plate is bleeding," she thought. "He's actually eating raw steak." "Eat," he commanded. "If you die, the game won't be as fun." He snapped his fingers, and the 2 Mexican waitresses pushed her into a chair, pressing down on her shoulders to keep her from standing up again. Although they were very small women, they were surprisingly strong. "I said I'm not hungry. Will you force me to eat?" she said angrily. But Sam didn't look perturbed. He put another bite of steak into his mouth daintily. There was a thin trail of blood at one corner of his lips. "He's a beast," Jade thought. "I may have to resort to some extreme methods, yes," Sam said. "To prevent you from starving, of course." He gave a nod to one of the waitresses, who placed a bowl of oatmeal in front of Jade and brought a spoonful up to her lips. She pressed her lips together tightly and knocked over the bowl. Oatmeal oozed across the tabletop. "I think you're a much smaller man than you make yourself out to be," she said disdainfully. "If all you can do is bully a weak woman like me, you're useless. If you want to deal with Dario, then do it openly, if you can. Why have you kidnapped me? Oh, I get it. Because you're afraid of facing Dario directly. You know you're no match for him, so you have to resort to these despicable means. You're a coward." She slumped back into her chair, exhausted by her bravado. The temperature in the room seemed to drop to freezing point. Everyone was surprised that there was anyone who would dare speak to Sam Jamison in such a way. Phil Gardner, Sam's chief muscle, was the first one to react. "Are you tired of living? How dare you talk to Mr. Jamison like that?" He knew what his boss wanted from him in such situations. He stepped right up to Jade and put one huge, meaty hand around her throat. His grip was like iron, and Jade couldn't draw in a single breath. She pulled at his hand, but couldn't shift it, She raised her eyes defiantly to meet Sam's. I will not show weakness, she thought. I will not beg for mercy. But his eyes were terrifying, like he wanted nothing more than to tear her to pieces. Phil waited until she was about to suffocate before he released the pressure.
She's still useful, he thought, and Jamison hasn't given the order for her to die. I don't want to end up like Kyle.
He shuddered, remembering how Jamison had maimed Kyle for disobeying orders. Jade drew in a desperate, shuddering breath.
I never realized air was so precious, she thought.
She waited until her breath was under control again before she looked up into Sam's cold eyes. She smiled disdainfully. What's wrong, Mr. Jamison? Are you angry because I told the truth? The angrier you are, the more it proves that I was right.